Longhorn Nation. We're back.
All right, we're back. Welcome to another episode of Fire the Cannon. I'm Rocky.
And I'm Megan, and we are Fire the Cannon.
Welcome back, Megan.
Right.
How's it going?
It's funny that we're
around?
both. I have been running around like crazy. I just noted, like, it's kind of funny we're both wearing white Texas sweatshirts, like we're playing in an away game or something.
Well, this is the warm, soft, warm one I wanted to wear because it's so cold in Austin today.
Of course, now it's like 70.
70s.
Yeah, exactly. It did get cold last night, though. It was down in the 30s out near my place.
30s, yeah. It was chilly. It's nice.
I'm ready for
it.
I know you're a tropical people. Yeah. I know you're a tropical people, but I love the cold weather. I'm ready for it. I'm tired of this 90 degree.
You are.
So,
I love it.
Yeah, I know you do.
All right. So we have a lot to talk about today. We'll catch up in a sec, but we have a lot to talk about. We have some fun shout outs to give to some Longhorns who made news this week. We're going to do a quick recap of Arkansas, what can we take from that game to look forward to Kentucky. We're going to have that playoff debate: is strength of schedule, style points, whose record is being undervalued or overvalued. We'll talk about that. We have a little bit of college football playoff preview. Maybe look at the latest rankings and the mock drafts and the bracketology and all those things going into who's got the best team going into the playoffs. And then we'll have all our week 13 college football picks. We'll look at the schedule and make our picks against the spread because we're just so good at that.
Hey, we've done okay.
We've done really well.
I've been sucking it up.
Mm-hmm.
I started off strong. You're coming in strong. Like recently, I've been sucking it up, but we've done all right.
We've done pretty good. I mean, it's college football; anything can happen. That's why we watch, right?
That's why we play the game.
Get into our Kentucky preview. We're so excited. Senior Day is here. We have all the great seniors in that fantastic transition class that really stuck it out with Sark and the new staff. We're going to talk about the keys to a Texas win, the keys to a Kentucky win. And then we have a lot of top stories. So we'll get to as many as we can and we'll pick our favorites and talk about those. But Megan, how are you doing? You have something going on tonight?
Good. Yeah, actually, I'm hitting up the Sugarland concert tonight with my girls, with Stevie and Mia. So we're going to go check that out.
With Sugarland.
Oh my God, you're killing me, Smalls. It's a country group that was real popular in the 2000s, 90s, 2000s and on. You'd recognize the song. I promise you'd recognize the songs. It just
okay. Well, how's it go?
I'm not. That's absolutely not happening here. Listen, I want people to listen to us rather than chasing them away. So, So Sugarland tonight at the Moody. That should be fun.
I mean, I know Sugarland, Texas, and I'm sure I've heard there's a band called Sugarland. I wouldn't know a song if you put a gun to my head.
If you heard it, you'd recognize it. I'll see if I can find one in a little bit and play it.
Okay. All right. Well, that's fun.
Yeah. So how about you? What do you got going on? Seems like a crazy busy time for you too.
It is a busy time. So we celebrated the life of a friend last night, and it was actually really beautiful. Got to make new friends and meet new people. And so that was special. Right now, everything's about wrestling season starts this weekend. So we just had Nadia's wrestling team, like parent info banquet dinner. It was really, informational. You got to meet some of the new parents, and it's always fun because like last year we were new to wrestling, but we weren't new to like team sports or school sports. So you kind of just go with the flow and get the info and check the calendar, pay your fees and get ready to go. So it's kind of neat now that we've been through a season of wrestling, which is really different than any other sport that we've had. Nadia's been in. It's very different. So now that we're kind of veteran parents, it's fun to see the new parents ask questions that I had a year ago. Like, do we go to this? Do we go to that? How long do these take? What time is it over? There's no time. It's over. It's over when it's over. You could be home at 2 p.m. or 10 p.m. Your kid, it could wrestle in 5 minutes or 5 hours. There's just no rhyme or reason to it. But that's okay. But the biggest thing is Nadia's pretty excited about this, that the preseason, we're all about preseason rankings, right? Preseason ranking, she came in number 6 in the state. So she's pretty excited about that. Her second year wrestling.
That's badass, man. Come on.
That's pretty badass. And we'll see how she does. All that means is she's got to work hard. That's all it means. So that's pretty cool.
But listen, number 6 in the nation or in the state?
The state. It's UIL.
No, Texas Texas is a big ass state. That's incredible for being in her second year and
That's what
ranking in the
Richard
top
said. There's
top
30
10.
million
Come on.
people in Texas, and she's number
Yeah,
6. I'm like, they're not all U18 high school girls at her weight.
still incredible. Hey,
It's still pretty
incredible.
cool. Yes, it is pretty cool.
Yeah, quick shout out to CB, man. Thanks for always being a great supporter. Thanks for being here. We love to see you. You know, love your participation too. I feel like CB is our fact checker. You know, he throws in those comments and ideas. Like, so
We
love
need
having
it.
you here, man. Yeah, we appreciate you. We appreciate you here. So yeah, all right. Well, let's jump right in. We've got a bunch going on. We got a lot to talk about, and not a lot of time to talk about it. So, quick shout outs. We had a couple. Congratulations to the head cheese at Texas. CDC has been named Austinite of the Year, 2024 Austinite of the Year. Pretty incredible honor for the guy leading everything at the University of Texas. We appreciate him. Just the things that he's done for the university, changing the game day experience, really elevating Texas sports back. I feel like he has brought the University of Texas back to prominence, and we've had a lot of fun doing it. So very cool shout out for him. Very cool honor and recognition for him there.
He's definitely out and about at all the things, right? And in addition to like all the Texas athletics, he's at men's, he's at women's, he's at all the different sports as much as he can be, home and away. He's at a lot of events, but also he's out and about in the city. And when you're making deals trying to get people behind funding huge projects and commitments to the athletics department, that's a big deal. That's pretty cool. Austinite of the Year, considering he's a transplant to Austin. I mean, I've been here my whole life. You've been here your whole life. We still haven't gotten Austinite of the Year. So maybe we need to work a little harder to be out and about in Austin.
I just wonder, does he ever sleep? Does the man ever sleep? I feel like he can't. There's just no way.
I don't know. All right. So another big thing we wanted to mention, Kelvin Banks is a finalist for the Lombardi Award, the top O lineman in the country. Congrats to Kelvin Banks. That's huge. We know we've been talking about the entire line being up for the Joe Moore Award, making the semifinalist top 10 for that. So finalist for the best offensive lineman in the country. That's pretty good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You got to love it. And then again, we've got, this is where I get a little sad, maybe happy. I don't know. Texas soccer is taking on number 16, Michigan State. So I look at this in a way that, look, I can look at it. I can't lose this match, right? I'm happy either way. Of course, going to be rooting for the Horns there, though. That is 3 p.m. this Friday in Durham, North Carolina. You got to wonder, you think Mac Brown's going to stop in and say hi?
Right. He's not too far away. So if you want to watch this game Friday at 3 p.m. our time, it's against Michigan State. They're ranked number 16. Texas is ranked number 4 in this tournament. It's on ESPN Plus, so you can stream it on the app. And I found out that Michigan State and Texas have played soccer 3 times, and they are 1-1-1. So you can't get more evenly matched than that. Hopefully after this Friday, they are 2-1-1 against Michigan State. So good job to our Texas women's soccer. Good luck. It's playing for a national championship.
Absolutely. Gotta love it.
Also, I learned, so they were in the Sweet 16 last year, win this one, and they'll be in the Sweet 16 again 2 years in a row. They haven't done that in forever. So good job.
Again, Texas soccer really building something special. Of course, we talked earlier about Texas winning the first SEC championship for the school, which is really an incredible feat for soccer. So they keep rolling, man. Let's cheer them on and be loud and proud. I believe too, there was a watch party going on at Little Woodrow's. I believe that one was the one off Lamar. Do I remember that correctly?
Or Lamar up north, the north location, not
we'll double check that, but yeah, there's definitely a watch party if you don't have the ESPN Plus app, or you just want to be around folks that are watching soccer with you. It's a lot of fun. So we'll put that up.
Maybe the Austin Samba will show up there.
Right. Have a little bit of jamming going on as you're watching.
That's fun. Yes.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's jump in. We've got to talk real quick about Arkansas. What went right for Texas? What went wrong? What can we fix? What are some things? Are there concerns going into Kentucky and the rest of the season for the Texas Longhorns? So, Rocky, we talked about this a little bit on Tuesday, but I'm going to ask again. Let's keep talking about it. What was your immediate feeling walking away from this Texas game at Arkansas?
Well, like I said, my immediate reaction when the game was over was, whew. You know that it's a road win, an SEC rival, well, a long time historic rival of Texas. Well, we're their rival, right? For sure. They hate us for sure. They wanted that win. They wanted to upset number 3 in the country. They wanted to, if they can't, be a champion, maybe they can be spoiler. And that's what they were going for, is to spoil Texas's hopes. So they brought it. It was a physical game. We could see they had a plan for Texas, how to contain Texas offense. It worked for enough time. Texas did enough when they needed it most to get down the field and take that two score lead. I just, it's the same. Some things improved, and we'll talk about those that we really wanted to see, that we saw, establishing the running game, things like that. But some of it was a little late, and that's this kind of team we said going in, that with that crowd and that rivalry and that hatred, I would like Texas to make a statement early and get the crowd out of it early. Yeah. And it didn't happen, punt after punt, but they didn't turn the ball over. What were you looking to see improve or Texas do in that game? And what was your reaction when the game was over?
Yeah, look, my immediate reaction, I'll say that I agree. I was like, all right, Texas won. We went into a hostile environment. We came out with a win. We doubled their point total. I was feeling good. There's certainly some things to clean up. Right. There's certainly some things as we review to clean up and to look at. But at the end of the day, going into Fayette-Nam, especially compared to where we were 3 years ago, the last time this team was there, massive improvement. You could really tell, even when the offense wasn't clicking, even when the offense wasn't having its perfect game, the defense kept them in it and the offense figured it out. And that felt to me like an improvement for Texas. That felt to me like a step in the right direction. Now, I agree with you. This is something that we know the talent is there with this team. We know the offense is capable of being a high-powered offense, and we haven't seen that as much as we had hoped. So that's where, I think I'm getting a little nervous as we get into these last couple of games of the regular season. Where is that high-flying offense that we know that Texas can do and Texas can have? But overall, leaving Arkansas, I felt Texas did a good job. They did what they needed to do. They controlled the game enough. And one thing that I've been harping on especially, penalties. Big shout out to Texas for the massive improvement with penalties for this game. Again, Texas ended up with 2 penalties for 15 yards. There might have been one. You said there's one that was a little questionable. Did it need to get picked up? But even if you
they picked it up because they owed Texas one.
Yeah, right.
Not calling the pass interference against.
Right, right. So again, even if you factor that in, let's say that they counted that flag that they ended up picking up, that's still a massive improvement for Texas on this penalty front. And that's something that's going to really factor into the next coming games against Kentucky, certainly against Texas A&M. Texas has got to be in control. They've got to play a smart, mistake-free game. And I think they did that for the most part at Arkansas. So for me, I walked away going, oh, thank goodness. That was a really great game. Our guys had their stuff together and they were sharp mentally, I felt.
That reminds me, we talked a little bit on Tuesday, kind of hinted at that there was some stuff happening under the piles in the lines that the players said, some good talk, some good hits down a little late, a little dirty, whatever. That's just rivalry game, right? And it happens in these kind of games. But when Sark always says you get what you emphasize, right? And what he had been emphasizing the last few weeks, especially in this kind of environment, is when they go on the road, they embrace the hate, they play with emotion, but not emotionally, right? They keep their cool, they keep their confidence. Think times like that, especially when a penalty can, give them from punting to a first down, or, great field position, or could, like we've seen, bring back a pick six, things like that, where if you don't keep your cool through the entire play, can really affect the team, especially on the road. So I love that they were so cool and composed, and it affected the penalties. Improvement in the penalties. It affected being able to sustain drives without silly things, shooting themselves in their own foot again. So that was really good. I like that it was improved. They were cool and confident, especially on, embracing that hate on the road, because they need to do that, especially when they go to A&M. So that was a great thing to take back too.
Yeah, I agree. And I will say this, I think Texas did a good job. Like we were talking about, they did a good job of minimizing silly mistakes. That has been something that's been nagging Texas. I will throw this out there. Fayette-Nam wasn't quite as aggressive as I thought it was going to be this time. I really do think that 11 a.m. kickoff factored in. We certainly got our fair share of horns down. We certainly got our fair share of, trash talking and things like that. But it was not nearly as vitriolic as it has been in the past. So
That's
I don't,
good.
yeah, I don't know if that was like lack of confidence from Arkansas, if it was just early enough in the morning that they hadn't gotten lubricated enough to be nasty. But I do think it's a good ramp into the rest of this season. We know that A&M is not going to do us any favors on the road. They're already bringing in extra speakers to pump up even more volume in Kyle Field. So I think Texas going into a place where they're hated and they're openly hated. And I will say this, there were some comments by some players after the game just mentioning how aggressive, I'm going to choose my words carefully here, mentioning how aggressive the opposing team was, perhaps at the bottom of the dog piles, saying things that were, pretty aggressive. So the hate was there. Let's not get that confused. The hate was absolutely there from the Arkansas side, and for Texas to handle business the way that they did, I think that's a really great step for this program. Yeah, Carlos, look, I agree wholeheartedly. You mentioned it's a big monkey off the back after getting blown out the last 2 Arky games. Yeah, agreed wholeheartedly. I think this was something that Texas had. This team in the previous, games has had the propensity to play up or down to the competition. And the last time that they were in Fayetteville was ugly. It was an absolute ass whooping. It was.
So was that Texas Bowl.
Yes, it was that Texas Bowl. It's just been nasty the past couple of games. So I agree. I think going in, handling business, and while, Texas didn't cover the spread, we'll say that they didn't cover the spread, but they did go in and they more than doubled the output, more than doubled what Arkansas scored. To keep Arkansas to 1 touchdown at home, I think is an impressive stat for this defense and for Texas overall. So yeah, I mean, definitely some improvement there. Quick shout out to, oh, go ahead, Rocky. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, yeah, they could have covered the score, which had some people throwing their remotes in the air. They could have covered the score, and we'll talk about it, the style points, and are they hurting themselves by not really putting the score up, running the score up when they can? They finished the last 2 games taking a knee when they're in scoring position. So we'll talk about that when we do strength of schedule, and is it hurting that they're not getting the style points? But that's oh, we're going to talk about that in a bit. Let's talk about the players of the game. So this is who Texas football listed as the players of the game. How do you feel about this list? Who really stood out to you? Anyone from here or someone else that should be mentioned?
Yeah, for me, I really, again, want to shout out to Hayden Connor. He had one of his best games as a Texas Longhorn. So it was really great to see him. He was out there. He was aggressive. He was playing big, mean, and ugly, right? That's what we want to see from our O-line. And at the beginning of the year, we really felt that this O-line had the opportunity to be one of the best in the country. Had some questions, a couple of games. The Georgia game raised some eyebrows, I think, but Texas was really back on track with this. And I think the O-line did a good job of protecting Quinn throughout the game. I will say this again, Quinn, there were 2 sacks, and I would say both of those were more on Quinn than they were on the O-line themselves. So overall, yeah, I mean, a big shout out to Hayden Connor in his senior year, one of his last games to play in the Burnt Orange. So he had a great game. Who stuck out to you, Rocky?
I thought it was interesting that Texas football listed special teams, Michael Kern and Bert Auburn. We know Bert Auburn made his kicks, especially in a crucial time where they needed to make it a 2-possession game. But yeah. Michael Kern, I guess, we talk about the punting. What did it say? He averaged 39 yards and only
39.8 yards.
Touchback. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I guess they want to give him some confidence and some improvement, acknowledge the improvement because it is improved. So that's good. I mean, we can't talk about this game without talking about Jahdae Barron, and we talked about this again on Tuesday, so we won't go crazy into the stats. But wow, he put himself on the Thorpe. People who didn't see him already in the Thorpe Award conversation, he is absolutely one of the leaders in the nation for that award. Alfred Collins proved again that he's consistently putting good game after good game after good game. And then Michael Golden, 2 for 2 for 2 touchdowns.
Matthew Golden.
Yeah, Matthew Golden, 2 catches, 2 touchdowns. You can't get better than that.
Talk about efficiency, right? Talk about efficiency.
Yeah.
We talked about this a little bit before. It really is kind of that embarrassment of riches that we're seeing come forward with Texas, where you're missing out on some of the guys you think should be active, but all of a sudden Golden steps up and holy crap, he's there and sure hands and he's really fighting for every ball and he wasn't going to have anything taken away from him. So great game for him. Absolutely. Yeah. Going back to the punting, going back to special teams, that's an area of concern that we've talked about with this Texas team for really this whole season. I think what we're seeing where we should give Kern a little bit of credit. Yes, that average punt was pretty low. It was 39.8, but part of that, and this is where I'm going to shout out the Texas team again, defense especially. Texas won the field position battle in this game against Arkansas. So I think some of what you're seeing with Kern's punts, they had to be shorter because he was trying to pin them in and trying to get them within. So yeah, we didn't see a lot of touchbacks, but I think some of that, not all of it, but some of it was by design. I would like to see some consistency and a bigger leg out of Kern when we need it, because there has been some question about that consistency and does he have that leg when Texas is pinned back, when they really, really need those extra yards. And again, we're spoiled as Texas fans, right? We're used to the Dixons and we've had big legs at Texas. So I understand that those are some big kicking shoes to fill, but at the end of the day, you're Texas. You've got to be able to be consistent on special teams and in close games and in heated games. Again, I'm going to bring up Texas A&M. The field position is going to matter. How you punt, how you kick, your big leg, that's going to matter. So I think that's something that I'd really like to see some improvement on from Texas, and just more consistency. Let's make sure that that big leg is there. You get a big punt, and then right after that, it's a squib kick, right? And she shanks it one way or the other. So more consistency out of the punting. I'd really like to see that. CB, you think that this is the worst special teams in the Banks era? It's hard to argue that. It's hard to argue that. I do think that, again, young guys, I think there's some development I think there's a ton of potential there, no question. But we're getting into the last two games of the season. We would have liked to see.
We are what we are.
Yeah. At a certain point, you can't keep saying, oh, well, they're young. Oh, they're inexperienced. It's the end of the season. Like, you've had enough time. You've played enough games. We'd like to see some more consistency there. So yeah, I think, go ahead, Rocky.
I was going to say, and two, this is one, like, statistically not Banks's best team. We've seen in the past block punts, block field goals attempts. We've seen kick returns, punt returns, not, to write home about, but there have been some this year. Where is all that? Maybe it's just the personnel they're missing that can really attack those. It is missing, and that massive, huge momentum, field shifting special teams plays are not there, and they're going to need those kind of things. We saw, in the Kansas upset over BYU on the road, they secure that with huge special teams plays. Like, sometimes the biggest upsets happen when Texas OU, things like that. There's huge momentum shifting, game changing plays can happen on special teams. And CB, there has been a block punt. Thanks. Where's the punt returns? Where's the kick returns? We need something like that to really break a game open, to really, especially on the road, shut down a home crowd. And hopefully those are coming. I mean, we are what we are. We are what we are. When they do kick off and we do punt return, even though they get scary and crazy, hang on to the ball. Quinn takes them for 1st and 10. Let's go. So that's good. At least we haven't had those penalties on the punt and kick returns that we've had earlier, where we're starting back outside our own 10. Those have been cleaned up.
Yeah, they've definitely cleaned that up. But to your point, Rocky, I mean, that's something that we really need to see some development and consistency out of. I'm going to keep harping on this. I think it's going to be important in the Kentucky game. And then I know the team's not looking ahead, but I sure as hell am. A&M, that's going to matter in a really hostile environment. Being able to control the ball, being able to control where you are on the field is going to make or break the game, in my opinion. So yeah, you've really got to be able to master that skill. And again, 10 games into the season, it feels like that shouldn't be such a struggle. We shouldn't be holding our breath, for which extreme is going to happen each time they're back there to kick. So keep an eye on that. And certainly that's something, CB, to your point, Banks has been money with all of his special teams guys. So I'm sure it's something they're not just ignoring. It's just keep working at it, keep going. Let's see if we can get in some improvement as the games come up from there. All right, a quick announcement too. Kelvin Banks, did you see this? Kelvin Banks was just announced as a Lombardi Award finalist. So again, a lot of guys this year making their money. They're really starting to rise up in those draft stocks. We've known that Kelvin Banks has been a badass for a hot minute, but he had a great game as well, and noted once more that he is the finalist for a Lombardi Award, which is really great to see all these Longhorns up for awards. So.
All right. So let's talk about the big elephant in the room quickly before we move on to the playoff debate, the strength of schedule debate. Is there an issue with Quinn right now? Sark always says the team goes as the quarterback goes. We see an amazing Quinn play against Florida, put up huge numbers, could have broken the Texas passing touchdown record if he'd even stayed in another drive, right? So he was on fire against Florida, the same Florida team that the very next week beat LSU at home, right? And there's something to say about the inconsistency, but not just the inconsistency, when Texas needed it most on the road at Arkansas, he engineered a fantastic drive, even keeping the ball in his own hand on a 4th and 2 and getting that first down. But the inconsistency from game to game and the way other teams have figured him out, right? Pressure, 3 high. He's done for most of the game, and he will do enough to help us win. So should we be happy that he's doing enough? I mean, we can't. The team is 9-1, right? This isn't all on Quinn, but he has the best receivers, pretty much the best receiving room in the country, and couldn't put big numbers on like other quarterbacks are doing when they go to the same places.
Yeah. So look, at the end of the day, I don't give a crap if Texas wins every game by 1 point. Just keep winning, right? So yeah, at a certain point. And look, we can say these things like we're everybody's Super Bowl, which has some validity, certainly against Arkansas. Certainly, Georgia felt slighted that everybody was picking Texas. I do think people come in wanting to knock Texas on their ass. But at the end of the day, Texas is leading the SEC. We are sitting number 1 in the SEC right now. Texas is winning games that they need to win. It might not always be pretty. It might not always be perfect. But just keep winning, baby. And that's what they're doing. I think that's something that's really important. Again, yeah, of course, let's look at the stats here. Over 7,500 yards of passing, 65 total touchdowns, 2 blowout wins against Oklahoma. Can't hate that. First conference title in 14 years, road wins at Alabama again, hasn't lost to an unranked opponent in his career. There are things that need to be cleaned up. There are some questions about Quinn Ewers. I think for me, the biggest thing that I see with him, the biggest critique that I have of Quinn, it's not about his ability. It's not about his talent. It's just about him overthinking things. What I see, and again, maybe I'm reading too much into this, but every time I've seen him go in and just kind of make a bonehead throw or hold on to the ball too long or let his feet get a little crazy or a little stagnant, it seems to me that he is just overthinking things. I feel like Quinn's issue isn't skill. It's not talent. It's just that he is in his own head too much. If there was a magic wand that you could take and bop him on the head and say, stop thinking about shit, just play football, go out and have fun playing football, that's when we see Quinn at his best. And how do you fix that? How do you mentally tweak that? I don't know. That's something that's a difficult position to be in. But I think we're seeing with Sark making his comments saying, look, Quinn's our guy, 0 question. I'm not worried about him. With all of the players, if those who are paying attention, a lot of players have come out supporting Quinn. I mean, they're rocking his gear. They're saying, just shut up. He's our guy. Quinn's our leader. He's our quarterback. I do not think, and I want to be very emphatic about this, there is not a quarterback controversy at Texas. This is not a question of should we put Arch in? No, absolutely not. Texas still has the best chance of winning with Quinn Ewers at the helm. That being said, yeah, there are some questions. Can Quinn get out of his own way? Can he, just go out there and have fun, lead this team like we know he knows how to do? What are you thinking, Rocky? What are your opinions on Quinn right now?
I think this team will be go as far as Quinn takes them because he is QB1. He does give them the best chance to win. We have seen him play his best games in the biggest moments, at Alabama, at a Big 12 championship game, at Michigan. And even though Michigan has turned out to be a dud, they still have NFL talent across the defense, and he picked them apart. So I would say I mean, we're in it. This is it. Let's see how far he can take us. Hopefully, like right now, it's lining up. If Texas handles business against Kentucky, like you said, we can look ahead. The team's not looking ahead. If Texas handles business against Kentucky on Saturday and goes into A&M with everything on the line, A&M is favored only by a field goal. We'll talk about that game at Auburn. If Aggies handle their business at Auburn, everything's going to be on the line and at that game next week in College Station on Saturday night, primetime game, hostile, Kyle Field, all the things. Is that when he rises to the occasion and just slices and dices and picks them apart? Because I feel like Sarkisian has a good plan, and he always says it's about there's multiple parts, right? It's having scouting, getting the talent, scouting the opponents, coming up with a great plan, calling the great plan as they go, and then executing it. Like all those things have to happen, right? So it's not winning is hard, right? They keep saying winning is hard. And then you think about all the things that have to line up for them to win. That is hard. All those things have to line up. And then you have to get 100, 18 to 22-year-olds to be focused and driven and dialed in every week, right? So it's going to be something else next week, but let's focus on this week and getting out of Arkansas with a win.
Yeah, I'm not worried about the focus of this team. I think they are focused. Something that I find kind of interesting, in this debate with Quinn that I think has to be considered and has to be factored in. Sarkisian was talking about this in his pressers that every game, Texas has had to adjust at halftime. They've had to make massive game plan adjustments. And that's something where I think fans are kind of, shellacking over. They're kind of glazing over that, right? We sit here and fuss. All last season we complained Texas doesn't make the adjustments at halftime. Texas isn't making these changes. What is this coaching staff doing? What's the problem here? Where I think we need to take into account is there are a lot of good coaches that have plenty of film on Quinn now. And we do come out with a good game plan, but when things aren't working in the first half, like they weren't against Arkansas, you can't have it both ways, right? You got to make some adjustments. I think some of what we're seeing with Quinn is that adjustment on the fly. That complete game, you have a week to prepare. You've been preparing in a certain way all week, and then halftime, all that goes out the window and you adjust it. So I think at the end of the day, making those adjustments is the most important thing. If it's a pretty win or an ugly win, again, I don't care. We can't fuss about the team not making adjustments or fuss about the team, how they look when the adjustments are made, right? To me, at the end of the day, Texas won this game 20-10. The adjustments were made at halftime, and Texas was a different, more efficient, better team in the second half. So I some of this to me feels a little bit like we're going overboard with the nitpicky and we're not taking into consideration all that the team has to do. Yes, I agree. Like that's a thing, like we're going to have adjustments. We're going to have to do that. Certain teams, some elite teams can go in, make adjustments and still look absolutely insane. Given the environments that we're in, first year in the SEC, first year playing against a lot of these teams, those adjustments at halftime, if they're made and Texas still comes out on top, man, that's what you can ask for. That's what you want. So, I think it's a little bit of can't have it both ways with this argument. But again, at the end of the day, you walk out, if you're winning by 40 or if you're winning by 1, it doesn't matter. Just keep winning.
Right. Let's hear Sark talk to wrap up the recap of Arkansas. Let's hear what Sark said about this win.
What a cool moment to win Saturday, and what a cool moment to have in that locker room with our players Saturday. And then we got on the bus and was like, let's go home. And I think that's part of this group that we have right now. They know there's so much football to be played that it never feels like we're winning the Super Bowl when we get in the locker room. It's like, hey, we won, let's celebrate, and then let's get ourselves mentally and physically prepared for the next one. And I think that comes a lot from, yes, the coaches, but the veteran leaders that we have.
All right, moving on. Just get ready for the next game. And next game is Kentucky, and we will break that down for sure in the next hour. But let's talk about this heated strength of schedule. So is it Texas's fault that all the other teams are stinking it up that they played? They scheduled the defending national champions. Michigan has been a solid program for years. They went on the road and played the national champions. They moved to the SEC schedule that everyone said was a gauntlet and so tough. And, you're not going to survive in the SEC because every game is an NFL game and this and that. And Texas right now is sitting at 9-1 one loss at home, an ugly loss, but one loss at home to Georgia. What is the scheduling? Like, what's the issue, Megan? Is the scheduling, how's that Texas' fault? All you can do is beat the teams you have, right?
First thing I want to say is I don't want to hear shit from anybody that plays an FCS team, period. Hard stop. End of discussion. If you factor in FCS teams, you do not have a say in strength of schedule arguments. You just don't. That to me should be it right there. Exactly to your point. Texas schedules these games, the out of conference games, years in advance, sometimes 10 years in advance. This Michigan, home and away has been on the schedule for a long time. Texas has scheduled, Ohio State. They've got Notre Dame coming up. They're not shying. Texas isn't shying away from scheduling tough out of conference games. Yes, you're going to have a few easier games at the beginning of the season out of conference, but they're not all easy games, right? You're going to have the UTEPs, you're going to have the Colorado States, but those are still like significant D1 programs. Then to factor in that you're also in the SEC, which every game's a gauntlet, right? And then also factoring in that Texas is not shying away from scheduling the Michigans and the Ohio States and the Notre Dames, perennial good teams here. I get frustrated with the strength of schedule conversation because of that. I feel that, yeah, again, CB, to your point, Texas hasn't played an FCS team since 2006. So Texas isn't scared. They're not shying away. I like the way that they set up their schedule in the sense that they play hard. Like you schedule how you can schedule. Is it our fault that the people that we've played have shit the bed? No, I don't think so. Like Texas can only control what Texas can control, right?
But look if their schedule really that horrible? Like, look at this strength of schedule, the college football top 15. Texas has the 38th, according to ESPN, 38th, average 33.3rd. Aggies are saying the Texas schedule is so easy. Theirs is only the 27th. And then you have Indiana. Of course, they're still undefeated going into Ohio State, so this will work itself out. But they have, by ESPN's rankings, the 106th worst, 83rd average. So a lot of the top teams haven't played elite schedules, right?
Yeah. I don't see how all of the focus is on Texas. I think we're seeing some of the SEC bias play in here, right? Everybody wants to talk about, on one side, they're saying, well, the SEC is a gauntlet and the teams are just better. And let's look, are you really telling me that if you took teams from the SEC that have 2 losses and put them up against Indiana, do you really think that the SEC team is going to lose that game? I do think in that sense, you have to kind of keep in mind the eyeball test, like we saw with Florida State last year. Florida State was butthurt because they got left out. But at the end of the day, the eyeball, they wouldn't have passed the eyeball test. Certainly losing their quarterback, you've got to make those kind of considerations. The biggest argument against the BCS against that ranking system was that it was computers and there was no human element to it. There was no feel, there was no eyeball test to it. Well, now we've got the eyeball test. Now we've got the emotional part of college football where humans are actually involved in the place, choosing where these teams are ranked. And people are pissed off about that. The funniest thing to me about that argument here, everybody's clamoring now, we should go back to the BCS. It's unfair now. If you look at the BCS rankings and use the same kind of criteria that they were using, the top 10 teams are the same top 10 teams. The same top 12 teams are the same top 12 teams. Nothing has changed realistically. We're just arguing about it because, now we don't like that Texas, their first year in the SEC, is actually doing something here. What are your thoughts on it, Rocky?
I just keep saying it's all going to play itself out. I think when it's really going to become an issue is, should a team like Texas not make it to the SEC championship game, or have 2 losses, or all the math and calculations, we know the million things that could happen if there's a 4 or 5 or 6 way tie of 2 loss teams in the SEC. If one of those teams if a 2 loss team does get into the SEC championship game and they get their 3rd loss, but they were the 2nd best team in the toughest conference, but they have a 3rd loss. So are they booted out now? And another team who didn't make the conference championship gets in? We don't know. That's the thing, is it's going to play itself all out. But then also, even with 12 teams, someone could get left out. And it's going to be up to the committee, who we're hoping is really watching all these games. It's impossible to watch them all with a really critical eye, all 25. Well, you would have to watch every game to say these 25 are the best ones, right? They can only get input and highlights and stats and things and go from there. But it's a team that's going to win the that could have won the national championship might get left out, but that's why it's up to those teams to control their own destiny and leave no doubt. Because when you don't control your own destiny and you're putting it in the hands of other people, right, then there's nothing you can say about it. Florida State. So
Yeah,
a terrible example, but they thought they controlled their own destiny and they still got left out.
it doesn't matter if it's 4 teams or 64 teams or 128 teams. Somebody's going to be pissed off about the rankings. Somebody's going to be pissed off and scream that things are unfair about the way that they're set up. At the end of the day, and I'm going to say the unpopular thing, a playoff is not the best way to determine the best team overall. It's just not. You have those Cinderella factors. You have those freak things. You have the matchups.
Yeah.
Correct. You have matchups that are extreme, that are favoring the heavy teams, right? But you get those Cinderella stories where a 12 seed knocks off a number 1. You're not necessarily determining who is the overall best team, complete team that season. You're looking at who is the best in that moment right then and there, right? And so yes, I understand the argument. I understand people being upset. I understand some people saying things aren't fair. If I'm SMU, I'm pissed off that Miami is getting more credit than SMU is, right?
But they'll get a chance to beat them if they both make it to their ACC championship game.
Right.
So they'll get a chance to settle it and control their own destiny. They will get that chance. So that's the thing is, I worry, like, okay, so ACC will probably only have one team in. Big 12 probably only gets one, and then they're loading it with Big 10 and SEC. But then you look at it, a Big 12 champion and ACC champion are going to get the 3rd and 4th seeds. They're going to get a bye week. They're going to get to host a game big game at home, and all of this is coming to 2 teams that aren't going to be as good as 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe 9 or 10.
Right.
So it's either way, it's never going to be completely fair or just for everyone. But if you are in the game, you have an opportunity to win, and that's all you can do. Then you have to talk about it. Is it better if you're not in your Big 12 championship or SEC championship at all, and you get that extra bye week, and you get to, if you're 5, 6, or 7 or 8, you still have people coming to you, and you still get a home game and a week off, and probably a favorable matchup of 9 through 12. So what would you rather do? Be in the SEC championship, risk more injury, have to play another week and lose it, and then get booted out altogether?
Right. There is an argument to be made that the 3rd place finisher in the SEC is actually better off than the second, the team that loses the SEC championship.
Right.
To your point, they get an extra week to rest. They're sitting out during the SEC championship, and then they have the potential of being in the playoff and still getting that extra week. Whereas you're right, the team that is the runner-up in the SEC may get booted out of the playoffs altogether. It's a really interesting way that things are set up. And that kind of scenario, to me, is where you have to factor in the eyeball test. You have to factor in looking at, okay, if this team that finished 2nd in the SEC with all these other teams that we think would pit well against the other teams in the playoff, if this team finished 2nd, all right, how would they pit against who else we want to put in the playoffs? Is it a reasonable thing? That's where the human factor, to me, has to be considered. That has to be part of what you're talking about in this conversation. You can't just say, oh, it's all by the numbers, it's all by the stats, because if you just do it that way, then you're going to get these really crappy matchups where we end up with, national championship games that we saw. What was the last one? I mean, it was an absolute blowout. It was a snooze fest. So let's make it a little more interesting. Let's get teams that are deserving to be there, that, yes, may have different kinds of schedules, but at the end of the day, the more high-powered team, the more capable teams are getting paired up against the more capable teams. You're not just letting people skate in because you're in a shitty conference.
Right. And there's going to be teams who get in who don't have a legit shot of winning a championship. And so here's the latest. We'll go ahead and go. Here's the latest rankings from the playoff committee, the selection committee. Of course, this is the rankings, not the bracketology, right? The brackets, how it would actually play out in brackets is very different because only one of the top four would be a Big Ten. Only one of the top four would be an SEC. You don't even see a Big 12 or an ACC in the top four here, but they would move up in the brackets of a top four. So
Right.
Is there anyone here ranked that really just strikes you as being too high, too low, or any
Well,
thoughts
look,
here?
if we're going to have the conversation about Texas's strength of schedule being weak, how do you not have that conversation about Penn State and about Indiana? How do you, for Indiana, for example, is getting credit for a quality win against Michigan, but Michigan is considered a pain point on Texas's schedule? That to me feels like, Texas has taken a lot of the heat here. Again, deservedly so. Bring it all. Bring the hate. Embrace the hate. We are Texas. People are going to talk about the big brand, and it is the first year in the SEC. But I don't see how you have that conversation dogging on Texas's schedule without having the conversation about Penn State, without having the conversation about Indiana. Who have they played? You mentioned earlier, yeah, Indiana is going to play Ohio State. Okay, one quality team, but you're going to argue that Texas playing at Arkansas, who beat Tennessee, Texas playing at Vanderbilt, who beat Alabama. You're going to argue to me that those aren't stronger games and stronger overall than everybody else that Indiana has played. I don't know. I get lost, and that's where I find frustration in this conversation. Like, so the surprises to me, I don't know that I'm surprised given like where they've been trending the whole season. But if you're going to have the conversation about strength of schedule with Texas and be really hard on Texas and how they don't deserve to be there, you have to use that same microscope. You have to use that same line of thinking against teams like Penn State and Indiana.
Yep. SMU 70th schedule, Notre Dame 72nd schedule, and they're going to slide in as an independent if they keep winning and they're
Right.
favored in their next two games. So, I mean, everyone needs to cheer this weekend for Army to get that big upset. We'll pick that game in a bit. So the bracketology right now, this is kind of what it's looking like. Again, we said the rankings are different than the brackets. Let me open that for you. Getting it ready. All right, let me show you the bracket. What it would look like if they actually played based off this last weekend's results. It looks pretty similar. Nothing, no real big shakeup. Texas still favored at according to this graphic as winning out, getting to an SEC championship, winning the SEC, and being the top number 2 seed behind Oregon, who they're saying is going to be undefeated. And they're saying would probably, if we're saying Indiana is going to lose to Ohio State when we make that pick, they're saying Oregon's going to beat them again. Wow, that's a big prediction there too.
Yeah. Well, and again, I want to point this out. How is this a situation in Boise State? Man, I'm excited to watch him. I think they have an incredible running back. Like, he is a Heisman contender. He's doing crazy things. But I am not convinced that Boise State is the team that is the best team to be at the number 4 seed in the playoffs to get that bye week. To me, that's where this turns into you're kind of sneaking in a team because of the way it's set up. And I'm not dogging Boise State for this. They're working with what they got too, but they are getting an easier path to a potential championship than teams that I would argue are better than them, even though they have a few more losses. I think you've got to look at that conversation. You have to question that. Again, Miami at number 3, man, I don't know. I don't. That to me brings up a lot of questions. That brings a lot of questions to me.
SMU will have a say in that. I mean, Clemson, they don't even have Clemson in here. So BYU, they just lost at home to a bad, struggling, trying to breathe Kansas team. So, well, yeah, this is going to be interesting. And it's getting down. I think some people are saying, oh, having 12 teams is going to make the regular season not as important, or games don't matter because more people are getting in. I think it's made the games even way more valuable, especially in like the SEC where we don't all play each other, right?
Yeah.
They only play a few of the other teams. So you have some who have common opponents, some who do not, some who didn't have to play all of the toughest teams. And how do you have all those tiebreakers? So you have to put on style points. You have to, win every game you Yeah, style points. Win the games you can. What do you think about that? And we mentioned style points when Sark said about taking a knee. Yeah, let's talk about this because the eyeball test is going to matter. Let's play Sark's comment here.
We just try to play good football, and we try to do it the right way. I know there's probably a point differential and things involved. In the last 2 weeks, I took a knee inside the 10-yard line 2 weeks ago. We kneeled it out Saturday because I think there's a right way to play the game of football. And I don't get caught up in what is the committee looking for. I think that our body of work is our body of work, and we try to play the game the right way.
Woo. Do you think it's a risk that the last couple games they could have put on another 7 or 8 and they didn't?
Yeah.
Do you think that's going to be a risk and come back to bite him?
Point blank. Yeah, absolutely. Look, I want to say this. The way that I was raised, the way that, my dad brought me up to cheer for the team that you love, not against another team, have good sportsmanship. I think that Sark is following that. I think he's playing by those rules. Unfortunately, especially given the atmosphere right now in college football and with the playoff debates that we just had, you've got to score some style points here. You've got to run up, beat teams that you're supposed to beat by a lot. And yes, again, I said earlier, if Texas wins by 1 point, I don't care. Just keep winning. I get that. But when you start getting into this conversation, when Texas has the opportunity, if you're winning by 1 point because you're playing to the last whistle and you come out on top and it's gritty football the whole time, okay, I'm cool with that. When you're winning by a few points, but you're taking a knee in the last minute and a half and you're inside the 10, what are you doing, man? Like, that's where I go, okay, look, we're having this conversation about strength of schedule. We're having this conversation about the eyeball test. How are these picks? There is going to be a human element of putting people in. And just like you mentioned earlier, Rocky, not everybody that's making these picks, unfortunately, is going to watch every single second of every single game. They're going to look at box scores. They're going to look at stats. They're going to look at highlight clips. And to me, even if a game, I'll take the Vanderbilt game as an example. That game had a 21-point swing because of penalties. But Texas took a knee in the very end and ended up a lot closer than what they were supposed to look like in that game. If you just saw that box score, you would look at that and go, what is Texas doing? They just escaped. Is Vanderbilt a good team? Yes. Is playing any SEC team on the road hard? Yes. But those moments to me were opportunities for Texas to really show up and gain style points for the eyeball test that will factor in to the college football playoff later down the road. So yeah, I that's one thing where my little heart of hearts, I appreciate you being a good sport and I appreciate you playing by those good sportsman rules. But at the end of the day, we're not living in that environment right now.
Right.
Texas should be taking the opportunity when you're, and I understand you don't want to hurt anybody. You don't want to risk a player getting hurt. Like Darrell Royal said, 3 things can happen when you throw the ball and 2 of them are bad. I understand that with Texas's propensity to not hang on to the ball a little bit when we've got a really thin running back room. I understand the thinking of taking the knee and being the good sport. But at the end of the day, I do think that thing is going to, that eyeball test, that final score is going to play a role in how the selection committee places people.
Especially, this is Lawson mentioned that, Texas is going to be compared if they have a second loss. They will be compared to other 2-loss teams, right? That there's a system where they might have to start comparing each other to see who's in and who's out and where you're ranked and if you're getting a home game or not. When Texas says we're all gas, no brakes, but also we're brakes, if we're up and time's running out. I'm all about the sportsmanship too. The game is in hand. Normally there would be no reason to shove it in their face. Normally there wouldn't. These are a little bit different times now, right? This is about, they are looking at the overall score and how much did you dominate? And if you beat Florida by this much and this other team, what did they beat Florida by? And, not that these things are transitive and equal, but that's when you have common opponents, that's part of the calculation for tie breaking is common opponents. And what did you do to them and where, and what did they do to them and where was it? You take that Plus, I always know the philosophy that it's not my job to stop me. It's your job to stop me, right? So if I have the ball and there's still a second on the clock, right? If I have the ball and there's a second on the clock, it's not my job to stop me. It's your job to stop me. And I think it's different in, in rugby where you play to the last second. There's you can't take a knee, run 25 seconds, 30 seconds off, take a knee. You can't do that when there's a minute left. You have to play to the end of the whistle, to the end of the game.
Yeah.
So to me, that's a little different. Like it's their job to stop me from scoring, not mine.
I want to see
playing it the right way. Okay.
Yeah, no, again, I don't disagree. I understand what he's saying. But again,
for sure.
I pulled this up because I want to see that Dan Campbell mentality. The Lions are getting a bunch of flack right now for running up the score, right? Against teams, they're having college scores in NFL.
Love it.
Exactly. It's not my job to pussyfoot around your bad team. It's your job to stop me. I think that exactly how you said it, Rocky. That's exactly what I want to see from Texas, because again, in this environment where we're at the end of the day, when you're looking at a lot of factors, I'll even look at this for the SEC tiebreakers, right? When you're looking at a lot of factors, you talk about the common opponents, you talk about, there is a potential for a very cluster FE situation with the SEC championship on who gets in and who gets out. And the scores are going to matter at that point. They will factor in. Is it the most important thing? No. Again, at the end of the day, winning is what's most important. But that not being able to finish off teams that they are expected to beat by a lot, not having those lopsided scores will, I think, factor in when you're looking at the SEC championship, when you're looking at the playoff overall picture and rankings. I think it's going to matter for Texas, and I hope that doesn't come to bite them back in the butt.
I agree. All right. So let's talk about when we talk about, Texas, big opportunity this weekend to put it on Kentucky. We're going to break down that game in just a few minutes, but let's look at the other games, other huge impactful games. We just talk about the playoff rankings, bracketology. A lot could shake up this weekend. We have some big games of some ranked teams. So let's kind of look at the schedule just so we know is Thursday night football. There's a few games, but I think the big one that matters that could shake up a little bit of the ACC is NC State at Georgia Tech. We just saw Georgia Tech upset Miami 2 weeks ago. Big game. Georgia Tech is favored. Friday night, if you're in San Antonio, you could go see Temple with no coach. Head coach Dan Drayton got fired. How did both coaches get fired from a game? Tom Herman lost in overtime. Stan Drayton's team, Temple, beat Tom Herman's team in overtime and still got
fired.
They
both got fired.
got fired. How do you get fired in your day off?
I can't recall, and anybody watching or listening, please chime in if I'm just missing this, but I can't recall a game in college football in mid-season where both coaches got fired
from
after
the
game. From the same game. That to me is crazy.
Yeah. So if you're in San Antonio, UTSA Friday night football, there's a lot of high school playoffs probably happening. But UTSA, go support them. Also Friday night, this is your 1-9 Purdue at 4-6 Michigan State. Michigan State, 13.5-point favorite. So Purdue is on a 9-game losing streak, and they've been shut out twice in the last 4 games, giving up 41 points per game. But Michigan State, they've only lost 6 of the last 7. And but they are scoring 19 points a game. Do you think they're going to cover 13.5?
We want to bring up that old strength of schedule there. Michigan State has not had good luck here. Again, they're playing Ohio State. They've played Michigan, in-state rival Michigan. Again, I'm a Spartan, and I'm just going to say this. My God, if you can't beat Purdue when you're home, there's no hope for this season.
Yeah. This is one of the games that's going to take football back 20 years, but we have another one coming up that's going to take football back 400 years. Yeah. All right. Also Friday night, UNLV San Jose State. I'm going to be never mind. Yes. UNLV San Jose State. So let's move to the big game Saturday. 10-0. Number 5 in the country, Indiana. We talked about their terrible strength schedule. ESPN has them over 100 worst schedule. They go to number 2, Ohio State, who's 9-1. That one loss we know by 1 point at Oregon. Ohio State, 12-point favorites. What are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I think this right there, that spread, that, Ohio State being favored by 12 tells you exactly what people think of Indiana. Like, again, I think they're ranked really high because it's hard not to rank an undefeated team in the top 5. But just like we were talking about with strength of schedule here, this is their first real test on the road. And Ohio State being favored by 12, honestly, I can see. Are we picking this one? Because I want to.
Yeah, we're picking it. What do you
I
have
think
against that spread?
I think Ohio State covers and beats the absolute brakes off of Indiana. Again, it's at the Horseshoe. This is a crazy environment. I know Ohio State has, they want to prove something here. And Indiana, as much as that story is great and they haven't played a lot of great football and all of a sudden they're 10-0, oh, that's great and lovely, but you're not going into the shoe and showing up. I would be really surprised if that happens. So yeah, I would take Ohio State, and I think I would take them to cover.
Okay, remember how when right before Florida was coming to Texas to take that what they knew was going to be a butt kicking, they had to make a statement that, the coach is their guy, Napier's their guy, and blah blah blah. Oh, Indiana just secured their coach, extended his contract, paying him good money. Why? Because they're about to go into Ohio State. And they're, huge 10-win season, record-breaking season for them. Great. This is where it ends for them at Ohio State, which will bounce them out of the Big Ten championship, which will, if they still hang on, they will still be one of the top teams in the Big Ten overall. So they could still finish the season 10-1, but not, 11-1, not be in their in their Big Ten championship and still make the playoffs. That's good. But their undefeated season ends this weekend.
I think both of those teams, this game is going to make things really interesting. No matter who wins, makes things really interesting in the playoff conversation. Again, I think Ohio State's going to win. Let's assume that happens. Ohio State wins, and now you've got a 10-1 Ohio State and a 10-1 Indiana. This is where you start to look at the eyeball test. Do you think a 10-1 Indiana is a better matchup or a better team, a more deserving team than a 2-loss SEC team? A 2-loss Tennessee, a 2-loss Ole Miss team, right? Like that's where that conversation starts to, you give credit for the schedule, you give credit for the wins. 10-1, having 1 loss on the season is impressive, like Texas finished last year. But it starts to get harder to have that conversation when you're allowing 12 teams in. Is Indiana really as deserving as a 2-loss, potentially even 3-loss SEC team? That's a hard question.
Right. Okay. Well, we both pick Ohio State big in that game. Number 8, thanks. It's happy hour time. Number 8, Miami is hosting a terrible 4-6 Wake Forest team. Sorry, the puppies are here saying hi to me. All right, they just came off that bye week, sat on that L from Georgia Tech. They're 25-point favorites. Let's move to a big SEC matchup. 8-2 Ole Miss, number 9 in the country, is going to Florida. This matters because both these teams are coming off big wins at home, upsetting big teams. Ole Miss just upset Georgia, put a beat on them 28-10. Florida upset LSU 27-16 because they got Lagway back. Now they will probably end up being bowl eligible because they'll probably beat Florida State at the end of the year. So what are your thoughts on this game? Is this another upset opportunity for Florida again at home, getting a big team there? And Ole Miss is favored by 11. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I think Florida's peaking. Again, getting Lagway back, you shouldn't underestimate that. That's a big deal for them.
It's happy hour, by the way.
Yeah, it is. I unfortunately only have my water right now.
That's fine. I just had to prepare. Okay, go ahead.
I love it.
Sorry.
So yeah, I think Florida is. I agree that they're looking better. I think they're finally getting their collective poo together towards the end of the season, which is when you want to do it.
Exactly.
That being said, I'm not sure that they have enough to beat a hot Ole Miss team with Lane Kiffin coming in. I think he's going to bring some crazy stuff, and I think this is going to be a close game. I do. I think it's going to be. I think Florida is going to hold their own, but I do think this is something where we see Ole Miss pull away in the end. That 11-point favorite. Oh, this one's tough for me. I'm going to say that Ole Miss wins, but I'm going to say Florida makes it enough of a game that Ole Miss does not cover.
I have Florida winning this game. Why not?
All right,
I have 2 good upsets I'm picking this week. This is one of them. They have Lagway back. They have confidence. Ole Miss just came off of a big win at home also. But I think having to take that momentum on the road, and I think Florida's defense has answers, can contain Ole Miss. We've seen them contain before this season. So I'm going to say Florida actually gets a little momentum here, and they get bowl eligible already. I'm going to give it to them. I think they're going to finish the season. I'm going to go ahead and say they're going to finish season 7-5. Why not?
All right, you giving that Gator Chomp a lot of credit. I like it. I like it.
Sure. And it also
Hey,
helps Texas win
I,
look even better.
I was gonna say that it helps Texas's
It would
strength
help
of
us.
schedule out, right?
We need all that strength of schedule.
Well, of
All
course,
right.
Rocky. Then
Go ahead.
the goalposts move at that point because Texas didn't play Florida with Lagway, so that would be the
Still
goalpost
had
shift.
to face that defense full of NFL talent
That
and
is true.
drop
That is
49
true.
on them like nothing. All
That
right.
is absolutely true.
Yep. So we don't need to pick this game. UMass goes to 10 Georgia. UTEP is at 11 Tennessee. That should be interesting. Florida State. This is the one I just wanted to mention. There's not even a line for this game, so we don't need to pick it. But 1-10 Charleston Southern is going to 1-9 Florida State. Who's going to get to 2 wins?
Charleston Southern
could 13.
They have the opportunity to do the funniest thing here. I'm just saying.
Come on, Charleston Southern.
I know who I'm rooting for in that game. Poor old Danny Cannell will be real sad and even more in his feels. Who knows? Maybe he'll go on another round of Texas hatred. It feels like every time Florida State continues to suck it up and just does something worse and worse, he takes it out on Texas. He's got to put another thing about Texas.
Well, if you scroll way down the ESPN Plus app, you will find that game at 12:30. Charleston Southern at Florida State. All right, big 2:30 afternoon games. Kentucky at Texas. We will make that pick when we talk Kentucky Texas in a few minutes. But Texas 20.5-point favorite still as of today. Penn State goes to Minnesota. BYU, Arizona State. That's actually 2 ranked teams right now. That's pretty cool. Let's pick this big afternoon game. Fox at 2:30, 8-2, ranked 16. Colorado goes to Kansas 4-6. Colorado is only 3-point favorites on the road. The reason this game matters: 4-game win streak for Colorado. They're averaging almost 40 points a game in Big 12 play. Kansas started awful. Daniels came back, and it was an awful start, but they've won 3 of the last 4. Their only loss was that close road loss to Kansas State. And they just upset like we picked they would do. They just went into BYU and upset BYU with special teams and defense. What you got? What do you think about this game? They have enough to control the 2 best players in the college football world.
Yeah, this is where that spread actually surprises me a little. And as much as my little heart of hearts wants to pick the Jayhawks, as much as I want to say Kansas is going to come through on this one, I appreciate that it's in Lawrence. Unfortunately, I think Colorado is just rolling too much right now, and it's going to be hard to stop Travis Hunter in Shedeur. So I think Colorado goes in, and I think they win, and I think they cover.
I'm going to agree. Colorado win and cover. I think it was a big deal for Kansas to go on the road the other last weekend and get that win at BYU. We saw the BYU fans in the stands shocked, even though we picked it. We saw them shocked that they had, and it was the defense holding BYU to 13 points that won that game. Special teams forcing a big turnover way when they needed it the most. So 4th down stop by Kansas. All those things, I don't know if they're going to be able to do that against Colorado. So I agree. Colorado, it may stay close first half, but Colorado will pull away second half. I agree. How is Missouri still ranked? Let's move to still afternoon game. They are 7-3.
Is this where I'm supposed to
ranked?
Is this where I'm supposed to bitch about the media favoring Texas A&M so much, keeping Missouri ranked so that A&M still has a ranked quality win here? If I'm playing by the Aggie playbook, I feel like this is where I'm supposed to say
7-3, Megan.
Yeah. Look, that to me was one of the bigger surprises that both that LSU dropped out, but Missouri stayed ranked. That after a loss, that to me was seemed perhaps that's the SEC bias that all the other conferences fuss about. But I'm not sure that Missouri should be ranked, but let's take a look at this one.
All right. They're going to Mississippi State, 2-8 Mississippi State. They're favored by 7.5, so about a touchdown. We just saw Missouri go toe-to-toe with South Carolina. It was an exciting game. South Carolina won at home. Mississippi State still hasn't won a game in the SEC. They're losing by 16 points a game, average in the SEC play. Is this Mississippi State's opportunity to get a win at home against Missouri?
All right. I'm going to call it upset alert here. Upset alert. I'm going to take Mississippi State. I will say this. It's at home for Mississippi State. And honestly, they've hung tight in a lot of the games that they were expected. Look, you just said pretty big point margin difference in the SEC losses. That being said, I think Mississippi State has come in with a really solid game plan in a lot of their games. And I think that this is the one that they finally catch them. I think Missouri is, again, struggling too much. They are on a downward trend. I think they've been called out for being frauds. And I think Mississippi State is going to come with a really good game plan here and finally get their first SEC win of the season.
Ooh.
So upset alert here for me.
Okay. All right. That's good. Let's see. I'm going to say Missouri's going to find a way to win this game. It'll probably one of those that takes football back 100 years, but I'm going to say that Missouri hangs on to win, and they are 3-3 in the SEC, and they are ranked. I just don't get it. I see some people are saying they're actually not ranked in other polls. ESPN still has them listed as number 23.
Yeah, so. in the playoff rankings, they're listed as 23.
Yeah, and why are they getting love for having 3 conference losses already?
That's what I'm saying. I'm shocked that they're still ranked, but hey, what do we know?
What do we know? Okay, let's see. The next game we're going to pick really quickly, 9-0, undefeated Army. Army is still undefeated. They are playing Notre Dame, but this is the game where they play in Bronx, New York at Yankee Stadium. So Notre Dame's considered the home team. Number 6, Notre Dame is considered the home team, but it's a neutral site game. Let's talk about Army's quarterback, Bryson Daly. He's only thrown 51 passes for 644 yards, but he's rushed 174 times for over 1,000 yards. There are teams that don't even have running backs with over 1,000 yards, like Texas, but they have this quarterback has over 1,000 yards. Their system is working. We know Army deploys all that triple option, this and that. Like, they do all the things. They have a quarterback that understands and can execute this system. Notre Dame has accumulated some pretty good wins, right? Aggies, Louisville, Georgia Tech, Navy when they were undefeated. But that loss at home to NIU.
Yeah. This is another one where we
season, do you think?
Yeah, I think that's one of the more embarrassing losses in all of college football, period. Like, not just this.
Oh, yeah,
season.
that's what I mean, of the football season. Yes.
Yeah, I'm not even saying the season. I'm saying in football history, that's one of the more embarrassing.
Oh,
losses.
in history.
Yeah, I think if you're Notre Dame, like, that absolutely should not happen. Again, this is why they play the game. This is where we get excited to watch them. But for me, this is another conversation to have. You know, I've posed the question before. Should Notre Dame have to join a conference if we're talking about the playoffs? You know, if we're talking about how things are ranked and strength of schedule and all this conversation, I do think that is a discussion to be had. Is Notre Dame, do they have an unfair advantage by not being in a conference? I think there is an argument to be made there that, yeah, they absolutely, again, they're going to do everything they can to stay independent.
I wouldn't if I was Notre Dame.
I wouldn't if I was Notre Dame either, but the conversation is, I do think it's an advantage that works to Notre Dame's favor in a big way for them to stay independent. So, yeah, this is going to be a fun game. This is one of those, again, you're talking about the quarterback in Army. Can we put an asterisk by quarterback? I mean, is that really?
That's when you're the game manager. Should
exactly.
I maybe pass 5 times a game, or should I? Because they are 9-0, and he has 51 passes. So that is about what, 5.5 passes a game.
Yeah, you know, do what you got to do, man. Like, it's working. They're undefeated. So I'll take it. I understand it, but this is another one of those games where you've got an undefeated team going up against the number 6 team in the nation. As much as I want to pick Army, as much as I'm going to be rooting for Army, I've got to say, and I think our buddy Kevin Dunn would be appreciative of this, I do think Notre Dame takes this one, and I do think they're right on the cusp of that 14.5. I see this being a 14 to 17 point win for Notre Dame.
All right, I'm actually going to say Army covers, because, like Lawson mentioned, Notre Dame 42nd in the nation in rushing yards allowed. Army's going to give them trouble. Yes, Army can control the clock. Army can move the ball. Army can throw fits. It's a system that most people don't practice against or prepare for all, off season or season long. So having to take on this game in week 13, which is completely different than what they prepared for all year, I think that's Army always surprises people, and that's why they're 9-0. They run a different system. So I'm going to say Army, I think also their undefeated season comes to an end, but I think they keep it closer than 14.5. So I'm going to say, yep, true. Notre Dame has fantastic DBs, but Army doesn't throw the ball, so that don't help you.
take
All
take
5
away
of
that
those
strength.
passes in this game don't mean anything. But yeah, I think Notre Dame has a better resume right now,
I
and
agree.
it'll be enough. They're more prepared for this game.
I agree.
We'll pick a couple more before we move on, and we'll go quickly. So just, 12 Boise State's at Wyoming. Let's talk about Oklahoma. And the side note that Fasusi, offensive line recruit, 5-star offensive line recruit, Fasusi is going to be in Austin, even though Oklahoma is hosting 7 Alabama.
Look, if I'm Oklahoma, I'm worried. That to me sends up all kinds of red flags. I'm all for kids taking their visits and enjoy the process. He is committed to Oklahoma.
Not according to Venables.
But
Venables says if you're taking visits, you're not committed.
Right. That's where something their Venables old school mindset is going to come back to bite him, I think. But yeah, again, if I'm Oklahoma, I have concerns. Any other season, any other year, in what world would a commit not want to see the team that they're committed to play against Alabama?
Right.
That to me should be setting up a lot of red flags for Oklahoma. And the fact that he's choosing to come to Texas and watch Kentucky at Texas over Bama at OU, that I'd have some concerns there. So before we pick this game, I do want to ask, do you feel good about the Susie? Now we know that he's potentially going to be taking some trips too. There might even be a scenario where we see him at Texas, for the Kentucky game, but he may watch another Texas game before the season's over in College Station. We know that the Aggies are still in the mix. Texas and A&M are both still in the mix for Fasusi from a lot of the recruiting news.
I agree.
In trouble as a program?
I think the issue, it's a big question mark. We know Oklahoma, who's going to be their offensive coordinator? Is the offensive line coach next in the chopping block? Like, what's going on? Who's Venables going to throw under the bus to try and say to bring him back? He's got this contract extension, so his buyout's going to be an issue. Like, there's a lot of reasons why, even if Venables, we know, is still the coach for a year or two more, we've talked about this. He's the one who's mismanaged this roster. He's the one who let the quarterback, who's now with the number 1 team in the country for weeks and weeks. He's the one who let him go and put all his chips on this, this younger kid. So Arnold. So we don't know. It's Fasusi is going to make the best decision for him, but it is telling that we know Texas, a lot of reports that Texas finished second. Aggies are still in the mix, and he's going to see, as of now, he will be in Austin with watching the Kentucky game on senior day and not at Oklahoma. And Aggies are still in the mix. So as of right now, he will be there again next week. So let's see. I love it. I love the way he recruits.
Agreed. I would bet actual doll hairs that he will be at the Texas A&M game, final game of the season.
Either way, he should be. It's the biggest game of the year, lining up to be. Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. Look, Lawson, I agree with this. How does an O-lineman make his money? By providing great pass blocking for a team that puts up big offensive numbers. Agreed. There is something to be said for a kid going to a place because he wants to be a part of building a program. He wants to be a part of bringing a program back to their glory, right? We actually talked about that a little bit with our senior class this year. This senior class is really special at Texas. They were recruited by. They weren't recruited by Sark. They recruited by Herman and his staff. But for them to decide to stick it out and stay with Sarkisian and help build the culture, I think that says a lot about him. And there's been a big payoff. There has been a truly big payoff. And that had to be a hard decision to make. First year that Sarkisian's there, Texas finishes 5-7. That's a place that you had to really gut check and decide, did you want to be it? But the coaches were building enough of that culture behind the scenes and got the players to really understand where the direction of this team was going. They stuck it out, and now look where we are. I would argue that if I'm Oklahoma, that's what you have to argue. That's what you have to put forward. You're going to be a key piece of making this team the best it can be. You're going to be a key piece. You're going to get immediate playing time. You're going to play a very important role in getting Oklahoma back to being Oklahoma, right? If I'm Fasusi, I don't know that I buy that. I don't know that I see the vision. I don't know that I buy into it, because it's one thing to say it, but it's another thing to be about it. You're talking about a player that's coming in not in a coach's first year, not in a, I mean, this is year 4 for Venables, right? Year 3, year 4 for Venables. He's had enough time to establish it. And he has truly, in my opinion, fumbled the ball with this program. How do you let Dylan Gabriel leave? How do you foobar your quarterback situation so bad? So if I'm Oklahoma, I make the argument, yep, you come here, you're going to be a part of building something. If I'm Fasusi, I go, yeah, building what? What tells me that you're capable of building anything at this point? I have some big questions there. So yeah, I think Texas and Texas A&M are both very much in the mix here. But we digress from picking this game. We digress from picking this game. So Rocky, who do you have? Alabama at Oklahoma.
Let's look at it. So Alabama, we know they took that loss, weeks ago from against Vanderbilt. They lost at Tennessee, so they struggle a little bit on the road. We can say in the SEC play because road wins in the SEC are hard. But since then, they've been 3-0 since that loss at Tennessee. They beat, but it was Missouri, LSU, and Mercer. So what can you take from that? But they did win at LSU in Death Valley at night. That was a big game. OU, they are 1-5 in the SEC. Their only win is Auburn, who has lost to almost everyone. We'll pick that game in a minute. Just up next is the Auburn game. Jackson Arnold, he had a 23.5 quarterback ranking last week at Missouri. That crazy fumbling, bumbling back and forth, scoop and score game, right? So 23.5 QBR. They are a ship without a rudder in all senses of that offense. Alabama is a powerhouse still. They are on fire right now with their offense rolling. I mean, not that you can take anything from Mercer, but Jalen Milroe's on fire. The spread is 13.5. I'm going to say they cover that by the first quarter. It's going to be a roll. A roll. This is like free money. Get your grandma's Social Security check. Go bet it on this. Don't do that. Go bet it on this game. Alabama is going to roll Oklahoma.
Yeah, I agree. I think we see an empty Memorial Stadium in OU in Norman by God bless the end of the second quarter for sure. I think Alabama comes in and just absolutely blows the doors off of Oklahoma. It's hard to see Oklahoma doing anything. They just look like a defeated team. Attitude wise, they just look like a defeated team right now. I think the excitement in Norman is lacking, for to put it kindly. So yeah, I agree. I think Alabama comes in and absolutely blows the doors off of this 13.5 point spread. I wouldn't be surprised if they doubled that at the end of the day. So
and OU has Michigan, Texas, Alabama, Tennessee, LSU, South Carolina, and Missouri on their schedule next year. And who's going to be their quarterback? We'll see. All right. Let's move on to another game with quarterback controversy. Maybe 15. Texas A&M goes to Auburn. Auburn is 4-6. We know the Aggies have 2 losses: one to South Carolina and one at home to Notre Dame. They played New Mexico State Aggies at home last weekend. This was pretty interesting. So Marcel Reed was kind of on a roll again. It was New Mexico State, but when they were up 31-0, Connor Weigman saw some game time. Incompletion, sack, punt. Then came back out, interception. And then we saw Miles O'Neill, QB3.
Yeah, that's another.
What happened in that game against New Mexico State?
Yeah, I think, and look, Lawson, you've been making some awesome points, man. I want to bring this up with that conversation. Yeah, we're talking about Fasusi. We know that Texas A&M is in the play here. But the same thing that brought up, like, can OU develop a quarterback? Does OU have a quarterback to even block? I think the same question has to be asked of Texas A&M. Is Texas A&M, are they going to figure their collective poo out? Again, I will say this. I've been saying this since they made the hire. I think Mike Elko is the right guy for Texas A&M. He has done really good things there. I think he's really brought forward that team. In my opinion, they've done better than what I thought the bar would be. So credit to
exceeded everyone's expectations. Absolutely.
Yeah, so credit to Elko, credit to A&M for really stepping up. But you do still have a big question mark at quarterback. And I think that's something that's going to nag that team for the rest of the season, certainly, if not into next season. So I think this is something where, again, you're looking at a 4-6 Auburn team. A&M's only favored by 2.5. This is another one where Vegas goes, I don't know.
Yep.
We have no idea what to expect. We don't know. To me, this is basically a wash. Auburn getting the 2.5 just because it's at home, but that to me says a lot about Texas A&M and what the expectations are here. Is there potential for them looking ahead to Texas? We saw Mike Elko in his presser ask point blank the question, how, with this big game looming and you guys coming off of this, you've got the loss to South Carolina and everything that you're going into Auburn, who's 4-6. What are you focused on? How do you stay focused? Are you looking ahead? And he said, no, he's going through this, talking about how the team is singularly focused on Texas. Oops, he meant Auburn. So yeah, you got to think that the Texas game is looming large here. So this is a huge potential trap game for Texas A&M.
Agree.
That being said, I do think Texas A&M goes in and finds a way. I'm going to be rooting for Auburn, but I do think Texas A&M goes in and finds a way. I think this is going to be a closer game than it should be for a number 15 team to go into 4-6 Auburn. But because that point spread is so low, I do think A&M goes in, wins the game, and wins it by, I'm going to say 7 to 10 points here. And I think that's something that comes on more in the end. Rocky, what are your thoughts?
Give me Auburn. Give me Auburn. Auburn's good. Auburn has, they have losses to Arkansas and OU and Georgia and Mizzou, like pretty much everybody, right? They've lost everybody, but they did win at Kentucky. So
they did. And Kentucky's been a tough team.
Exactly. But they have a 1,000-yard rusher. Their quarterback, Peyton Thorne, has thrown for over 2,000 yards. There is potential to outscore the Aggies, right? There is potential to do that. It's a night game. That's why I'm like tipping the scales to Auburn. If this was an 11 a.m. game, I wouldn't be so hot on Auburn. But I'm going to give them, because this is a night game. We've seen the craziest things happen in these night games over this SEC season, right? So I'm going to say Auburn pulls this off. I think they have more offense. Marcel Reed, we can tell, is QB1. He's going to be QB1. He is dual threat. We saw him run a touchdown in this weekend, use his feet, keep plays alive, which we'll talk about next week. Texas is pretty good at that this year, controlling and containing these dual threat quarterbacks. But let's talk about, I think Auburn has enough offense, even though they don't necessarily always score a lot of points, that the pieces are there. And I think the pieces are there this weekend. And I think Auburn has enough defense to really get after Marcel Reed. So I'm going to say this is my upset city. Yes, Auburn's good. And Texas, we already heard the coach looking ahead to the Longhorns next week, looking ahead to Texas. So sure. I'm going to say this is it. I've been good at picking the Aggies fair and square when I think they're going to win. I picked them to win. This week, I'm going Auburn.
Let me ask you this. Do you think A&M is a more dangerous team coming into that game with Texas at Texas A&M coming off of a loss to Auburn?
Absolutely.
So
we would rather the Aggies go in and win in Auburn and come in with big floated heads and be think a lot of themselves. Absolutely. I don't want them down and kicked and low and playoff implications on the line. If they take a third loss, even though this would be their only second loss in the SEC and third to Texas, but if they take a second loss in the SEC, then they really are going to need that win against Texas to have any hopes of a playoff spot, right? They can't go, 3 losses would be on the edge, 4 losses would be done. So I would say, yes, I like Auburn's offense enough. I think they have the pieces enough.
All right. Yeah. All right. That's a good one to keep an eye on. All right. We've got one more to pick here. Rocky, why don't you bring us into that? Yeah.
All right. So 22 Iowa State goes to Utah. We'll pick this one. Vanderbilt at LSU. 6-4 Vanderbilt. Man, they were so hot. Now they're 6-4. At LSU. Man, they were so hot. Now they're 6-4. Vanderbilt is coming off that loss to at South Carolina, and then LSU 3 straight losses. Aggies, Alabama, Florida, 3 straight losses, 2 of them upsets. Is LSU fighting anymore? Like, I know they've suffered a lot of injuries, especially on defense, but they're 8-point favorites at home against Vanderbilt, and we know Vanderbilt's quarterback is limping. I need to check the latest injury availability report, right? What do you think?
This is one of those games that I would say if it was being played at a different time of day, I might have a different pick here. But given that
Okay.
it's going to be Death Valley at night, and there are some questions about Pavia and his health. Yeah, I've got to take LSU in this one. I think that atmosphere is going to, the Tigers are playing for pride at this point, and I don't think they're going to lose a night game at Death Valley. I just don't see that happening. Again, if this was 11 a.m. game, maybe I give Vandy the nod here. But yeah, I'm taking LSU, and I think they're right at that 8. But I'm going to say LSU by 10. I do think they cover.
I'll go with you on that one. The night game is the key here. I think LSU has been drinking since they lost to the Aggies. They don't even know that this is a night game. It'll be great. I think Vanderbilt is going to come in and I don't think they're going to have enough for the Tigers. I think the talent, the disparity is going to catch up with Vanderbilt like it has been the last couple of weeks. And then 9:30 at night, you can watch 5-5 USC take on UCLA 4-6. All right, so let's move on. Let's do we just had happy hour, but let's give a shout out to Chuck, our friend Chuck, and his beautiful land, and let people know how they can take advantage of enjoying this beautiful property.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you guys are looking for something to do this holiday season, somewhere to take the family, look no farther than the perfect Texas experience at the Rockin' Diamond S Ranch. You've got to check it out. It's on over 120 acres of beautiful Texas Hill Country in Blanco. That's just a few minutes, a short trip away from Austin or San Antonio. And Johnson City is right up the road. There's a ton of shopping. There's food. There's a ton of distilleries and wineries in the area, so there's always something to do. The property sleeps 14 with 1 primary house and 2 fully furnished cabins. You can also go wildlife watching, fishing, and our Longhorns are out there. So you get to play with the Longhorns. You can feed them, interact with them. It is great photo op for your Christmas cards if you guys are looking for it. So again, please reach out to Chuck Smith. That's rockindiamondsranch.com, or give Chuck Smith a call at 512-694-1969. So again, it's a good time. You've got some availability out there for the holidays. Take a quick screenshot here for the contact. And as always, we appreciate our friend Chuck, and you guys have to check it out. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned holiday photos. So maybe someone just wants to have the land for a day. They can work that out too. Go out, spend the day, meet the Longhorns, take beautiful photos. That's pretty cool. All right. So thank you, Chuck. So let's talk about, we're moving on to Texas at Kentucky. We are finally there. Yes. It is a sold out game. Of course it is. Texas has been selling out all the games, right? Like everybody wants to be at this game, packed capacity. Bevo Boulevard, the Midway. What is it? What is the Midway? What's
Smokies
it called?
Midway.
Thank you.
Midway.
Smokies Midway. Sold out game. And it is senior day. But this is a really special senior class, Megan.
This is a special senior class, like we talked a little bit about earlier. This is a part of the class that decided to stick it out with Sark. They were recruited by a different group, by a different set of coaches, and decided to stick it out and really bought into what the vision and the culture and what was happening here. And Coach Sark had something to say about that. Rocky, do we have that?
Yeah, I have it right here.
Let's pull it up.
Let me play it. Is it playing? Let me hit play. That'll help.
To celebrate senior day, I owe a ton to them. These guys bought in. Without this group, we wouldn't be where we are. A lot of these guys have done so much work for us and have been such catalysts for our culture and what we do. And so I'm very grateful and thankful for them.
Aw.
Yeah.
It's going to be an emotional day because of the seniors that are here, the ones who were recruited by Tom Herman and the previous staff and fought through the transitional, especially in the age of NIL and transfer portal. They were top recruits who could have said, you know what, I don't want to hear what Sark has to say. He's coming in with the different vibe, different thing that I committed to. But it proves that they committed to the university and they committed to rebuilding the program. And they came to love Sark. And we've seen the way the players talk about Sark and the way Sark talks about the players. They bought into the culture and the vision and the development. and wow, like the people who've like blasted their draft stock in the last couple seasons, and the way he's turned the program around through the experience of these seniors. Which seniors are you most excited about, or most just really emotional about this on this senior day?
Well, again,
they're all amazing. They have all contributed.
I'm gonna be a hot mess the whole time. I always do
know.
this.
We gotta be in our seats early for senior day.
Yeah, I like to think that I'm tough. I like to think that I can tough it out, but inevitably, the second that they start, it's like the ESPN features, right? The second that they start talking about the seniors, I am just a wreck. I'm crying. I appreciate them being here. But keep in mind, this is a group of seniors that was a part of that Bo Davis rant after Iowa State. And after that, they decided to stick it out and really get pissed. And this was the great culling, right, of that particular group. These seniors stuck it out, and like you said, Rocky, they really bought into the culture. They understood the vision, and they decided to stick around. So personally, I gotta always give a shout out to Hayden Connor. I think that he's got a special relationship with his family, and just love him. And I'm gonna miss seeing the Connors every day on game days. For me personally, that one gets me. And we're going to support Hayden no matter where he ends up.
I'm already going to cry.
Yeah, I know. Look, I'm already emotional.
I'm not. Everybody knows I'm not a crier. I'm just not a crier. But I'm already like.
I know. I've already told them I am not emotionally prepared for this. I am very much going to be, like the anchor man. I'm in a glass case of emotion. Like that will be me the entire senior day. So how about you, Rocky? Is there anybody that sticks out that you're?
Jade Barron, especially. I mean, there's a lot of them that are going to be emotional, but I feel like Jade Barron, especially when we saw his transition with Michael Huff and taking on the 7 jersey and really committed to coming back and not just being a better player, but an amazing leader for the team, right? He, the way he came back and just is dominating statistics. And the goal was, if you have the Thorpe Awards winning jersey number, like a historic number in Texas football DBU history, and that man who's still, Huff is part of the program and part of the football athletics, he's there with them every day. When he blesses you and hands you number 7 jersey, when they did the big video for the number switch, that means so much. It means so much more. He didn't just come back. He came back wearing number 7, and he knowingly and willingly took on everything 7 means.
The weight that number carries at the University of Texas.
Exactly. The tradition, the history, the expectations. He could have just come back with his old number and said, I'm going to see what I can do. No, he put those Thorpe Award winning expectations on himself. We've seen him have, like Sark praises him, the versatility, the commitment to the team, the willingness to play where he's needed, game by game, drive by drive. We've seen him go where he's needed and be a leader and lead by example. And I'm really grateful that we would not be the number 1 secondary in the country and a number 1 total defense in the country without players like Jade Barron, right? There's a list of players that have contributed at this level. Alfred Collins, he'll be at senior day celebrating too. But you wouldn't be that without someone like Jade Barron. And like you mentioned, there was players that are like supporting the QB, and we saw Jade wearing Quinn shirt, things that like the unity and the way they all support each other. It's really special for Jade to be having the season he's having, to be rising his draft stock the way he is, to be a national Thorpe Award contender, like a legit contender for that award, putting up huge numbers on the biggest stage against the best competition. Yeah, Jade Barron is going to have a special place.
I love it. All right, let's hear from Gunnar Helm real quick on what this senior class means to Texas and what they contributed.
I mean, like I said before, just kind of going back to culture, I think we kind of laid the foundation. We've been around, the culture that we have now and the culture that we had last year with guys like Jay Witt and Murph and X and all those guys, all those great players that are playing on Sundays now. I would just say, with all those guys being in our class, this was the class that had to lay the foundation, that had to get the culture turned around. And I think that we've done a great job, but everyone's bought in, so it makes our jobs a whole lot easier.
Everyone's bought in.
Wipe the tears.
They've come a long way from. Okay, so we know, like, not to take it too far back, but the transition from Charlie Strong to Tom Herman, and we've said this many times, Strong had the culture, but not the backing from the administration as much, or maybe not the X's and O's as much on both sides of the field. Right. And then you had Tom Herman, who was Mensa, X's and O's, but burned bridges with high school coaches and donors and all these people because of his, arrogance. And he just got fired again last week from his latest team. So you have Tom Herman, who we thought was the next coming because of his success at a lower level, but he brought all his buddies with him and it just didn't work out. And then you have Sarkisian, who's coming in, having learned from, the best coaches and, Nick Saban, and, he's learned from these amazing coaches, and you have that, but he brings with him an elite staff, and he's willing to learn and adapt and go to other coaches and learn other systems and figure out what is working around college football and bring in people that teach him along the way too. When you have that kind of leadership, then when the players see that, they are willing to learn and expand their circle of who they listen to and who they learn from. And you can see they are very confident in their training and development, but also it feels like this team is humble in that they put the team first. And that's why all the boats are rising. Because like Stark always says, the individual awards, all those things will come when the team is together, when the team is playing well together, those individual things will come. And they are coming. These individual awards, like we mentioned Kelvin Banks a few minutes ago, these individual awards are coming, opportunities for these awards, because the team is so put together.
Yeah,
and that's
agreed. Yeah, agreed. I think Texas fans have to look at this senior class coming through and appreciate that Texas would not be where it is right now without this senior class and without their dedication and without their buy-in to the culture, and really sticking it out. Like you said, this has been in the age of NIL and the age of the portal transfers. There was plenty of opportunity for these guys to leave and find success elsewhere. But they bought in, and not just that they bought in, but that they got the young guys to buy in too, and that they got the new players coming in to buy in and really be leaders for them, and show them the way and buy into the culture that Sarkisian is building. I think that's really important and really special. You don't always see that. You don't always see that with a group of guys. So really great there. And again, you gotta love them. So all right, let's
so get there early in your seats. Get there early in your seats so you can see them come out, be with their parents, give Sark a hug, have their name on the screen, because they've been through, this senior class has been through a lot. 5 and 7, transition, all the things, went to a college football playoff, lost in the last second of that, game. Like, they've been through a lot, and they're still here, and they're fighting for this team, and they're setting the example for this new group coming in, right? So let's make sure we give them a lot of love in senior day.
Absolutely. Also, get in your seats early, because there is an F-35 flyover for this game. So that's going to be super cool. Gotta love that. All right, so looking forward to this game. Let's talk a little bit. Let's preview it. Let's see where the strengths, where the weaknesses are. I want to hear from Coach Stoops first. We know that Texas has historically not liked playing coaches with the last name of Stoops. How does Stoops view Texas? Let's view that.
All right. There's no weaknesses on this team, but view the eye test. They're as strong as anybody in the country. Tell me one group. I mean, you look at them offensively, a dynamic play caller and a great coach. O-line is completely solid. Running backs, 2 great ones, probably more, 4. You know what I mean? But wide receiver room, arguably the best in the country. Dynamic tight ends. Defensively, front 4. They lost some guys that were pros, replaced them in the portal with pros. Really deep, really big. I'd say, arguably, again, the best secondary in the country, with it, bar none. And, you put that together, a pretty solid team.
Pretty solid team. There are no holes. And when they're all firing at their top level, there are no holes, right? When the offense is firing, they can pick apart any defense when they're on point, right? that our secondary, our D line, like the edges, the linebackers, everybody, we've seen them have elite play. And the defense, of course, has been way more consistent than the offense or the special teams. But you put that all together, the potential is there for the most insane complete team. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's high praise from Coach Stoops there about Texas. So let's look at it. I mean, if he's saying that best secondary in the nation, how does Kentucky match up against Texas? Where are Texas's strengths? So let's talk about that a little bit, Rocky.
All right, let's look at here this graphic. Orangebloods.com posted this graphic. It shows matching up Texas versus Kentucky. Texas with the 18th best offense against the 107th offense. And when we have the number one total defense, it should mean Kentucky will have a really hard time moving the ball, should be in third and long often, should force some turnovers. Those things should come when you have one of the worst offenses in the country against the best total defense in the country. I would also look at they do move the ball in the air. They have the 20 what was I looking at? Oh yeah, they struggle. They struggle to move the ball in the air, and Texas has the best pass defense in the air. So the opportunities are there for the turnovers. The opportunities are there to give Texas short fields. That's what I'm seeing. Can Texas take advantage of that on offense against a defense that is pretty good? 29 total defense is respectable. That's enough to try to contain the Texas offense.
Yeah. Again, so let's talk about this. You had Kentucky marked as a potential trap game for Texas at the beginning of this season.
Yes.
Do you still feel this is a game that has potential to mess Texas up?
Yes. To me, 21 seems like a really high number in any SEC game. The reason I picked this as a potential trap game is because early in the season, it looked like they had a roster with a lot of NFL talent. They have an elite wide receiver with speed. They brought in, a transfer quarterback and then a backup one to make sure that they were, really set at quarterback. It seemed to me that they would be, this was preseason, right, before we saw them fall apart. But the roster is still the roster. To me, it seemed like they were a tricky team. But what caught me the most was that it was more the schedule. It was that it was in between hostile road Arkansas and hostile road Aggies. Looking ahead, to me, either stumbling and surviving or coming off that, which you thought was going to be the trap game for Texas, was that Arkansas coming off what could have been a stumbling block for Texas. Was Arkansas going to beat them twice, or were they going to survive Arkansas and be looking ahead to, A&M next weekend? It was more to me the schedule that more than anything. But it's senior day. It's at home. This is an opportunity to get some momentum going again. We thought they had momentum after the Florida win and then staggered and sputtered at Arkansas. This is an opportunity again. Round two. It's like when you're doing a lawnmower, right? You're like, and you mow two things and it stops, and then you pull it again. This is us pulling that lawnmower again. Like, come on, we know the lawnmower runs. We've seen it. Now let's pull it again and go. And maybe this time it keeps going. That's what we're hoping happens against Kentucky, even though they do have one top 30 defense. They have a head coach as the defensive mind. What do you see from these numbers?
Yeah, again, I think Kentucky is a deceptively tricky football team this year. I think that they've played a lot of really close games. And while, yes, looking at the numbers here, everything lines up well for Texas, right? Now, that rush offense, we want to see Texas maybe establish a run a little bit more. But again, when you're comparing just straight numbers to numbers with Kentucky, I think Texas is obviously a clear favorite here. What I will say, and I've got to agree with you, Kentucky, they've played some really close games. They've pulled off again. They lost to Georgia by 1 point. They played Ole Miss and beat Ole Miss, right? Like, this is a team that has a lot of potential to really do some damage. That Vanderbilt team, when Vanderbilt was hot, That was a close loss there. Florida, that was a little bit crazier. Florida, definitely, that was in the swamp, and Kentucky kind of faltered. We have seen towards the end of the season, Kentucky has fallen off a little bit. So for Texas, that's good, right? We're seeing Kentucky trend down a little bit towards the end of the season. Again, hard to tell really to glean a lot from their last game against Murray State with a 48-6 win. Gotta love those SEC schedules, right? Yeah, so I think Kentucky is going to come in. I think Stoops has a lot of respect, as we just heard, for this Texas team. I think he's going to game plan well. Like we talked about a little bit earlier, when you're going up against Quinn, you play that 3 high. If I'm going up against Texas, I throw that 3 high at him all day, every day until he proves that
Everyone
he can
should.
beat it.
If you're
You
not, you're not
absolutely
doing your
should. Exactly. You absolutely should. So for me, that's something where I think Kentucky has the opportunity there, right? They have an ability there. But that being said, so Kentucky's pass defense is their highest ranked piece of defense. That's really their pass defense has been very good, and that's what's keeping them up there in the the higher rankings of defenses, especially in the SEC. So again, yeah, I think there's potential for a trap game here for Texas. As much as we like to bag on Texas A&M and Elko for that Freudian slip of talking about focusing on Texas rather than he meant to say Auburn, I do think there is potential here for Texas to stumble a little bit, especially if we see those slow starts, especially if we see some of that second guessing in Quinn's mind, like we've seen before. So let's talk keys to the game here, Rocky. I think to start off, like, what are some keys for Texas to win against this Kentucky team?
All right. So my first thought on what Texas needs to do for it to be a Texas win, they have to establish a run against the 54th best rush defense. 54th isn't the best, but it is in the top third-ish, no, top half-ish, 20%-ish of college football, right? 40%-ish of college football. So they have to establish a run game. We saw them struggle to do that at Arkansas until late, and they did get it going. And we know Kentucky does start out strong. They have a defensive-minded head coach. He has a good plan. It's going to be, like you mentioned earlier, those adjustments. Sark will have to keep adjusting, playing that chess match throughout the game. We know Jaden Blue was in a sling at the end of the game at Arkansas. He's been practicing, but what does that mean, right? How limited is he? We'll see if he's limited at all. We'll find out. So this will be one of those Wisner, Gibson, Blue games where everyone will have a big role. I would love to see them establish the run against this defense. I would like them to take advantage of short fields because the turnovers are coming. The turnovers will happen. This is a team that's 100 something in offense, and Texas leads the SEC in interceptions and forcing turnovers. So I would love to see when Texas gives the defense gives the offense the ball in excellent field position in their own half. I would love to see Texas take advantage, which they couldn't do against Georgia, costing the game, right? Texas defense handed them the ball in great field position, and the offense couldn't do anything with it. Kentucky's a good defense. They have a defensive-minded coach. However, when Texas defense, number one in the country in total defense, hands them the ball in great field position, they must take advantage of it and put points on the board. Not 3, we need 7. We need to let them know this is Texas offense. And then my final key for a Texas win is to get that 107th best offense off the field. They need to be 3rd and long and then 3 and out. That's what it needs to be as often as possible. Give them no hope. Number one total defense needs to give them no hope that they can get anything moving on the road. Those are my 3 keys to that win. What are your 3 keys to a Texas win?
Yeah, for Texas to do well, I want the defense to keep doing what the defense be doing, right? I think Texas defense has really proven themselves this year. We just talked about Jahdae Barron and all kinds of the insane stats that this Texas defense has pulled throughout the season. I think the defense is going to hold Kentucky. I would like to see the defense perform like they did against Florida. Shut them down early. shut them down often, and make their life absolutely miserable. I think that's a good opportunity for Texas to come in and really just establish their dominance and establish their win for Texas. For Texas to win, that's what the defense has to do. Just keep doing what they've been doing, keep up the status quo, and keep balling out. I also want to keep an eye on turnovers. That's something that's been a little concerning for Texas recently. We got lucky in the game against Arkansas with that fumble out of bounds. And the frustrating thing for me for Texas with the turnover issue is that it hasn't just been one player, right? We've seen it from several different players in several different points of the game that could make some key mistakes, and it could be really important. So I want Texas to protect the ball. I said this on our review of Arkansas last Tuesday. I want to see every single guy on campus on offense, and hell, a couple on defense, walking around with a rock on campus, and everybody trying to punch that ball out, because I think ball security is really, really important and can make a big difference in this game. It'll certainly make a big difference going into the game at College Station as well. And the third one's a little less tangible, but I'm going to throw it out there. I want the Texas offense to have fun playing football. I feel we
count smiles.
Yes, look, we talked about this early on at the top of this program. I think when Quinn is at his best, and I think what we've seen a problem with Quinn when he's had the problems is he is overthinking things. He's not going through his progressions well. He's forcing the ball and missing his throws. His feet are getting sloppy. Again, I don't think this is a matter of Quinn not having the talent or not having the reps. He knows this offense. He knows what to do. The guys love him. They're playing for him. He's playing for the guys. When Quinn stops overthinking, Quinn is his best Quinn. So I just want the offense to go out. I just want everybody to have a good time, right? I want the offense to
be Quinn.
Exactly, Lawson. Exactly. I want Quinn to go out there, not overthink things, not get in his own head. Just go out and sling the ball around. Have some fun. Enjoy playing
seniors.
Football with your seniors.
Which is his whole O-line. His whole O-line might be gone next year. Pretty much. The entire O-line may be new this year. So this might be, well, we're hoping they get a home playoff game, but regular season, this could be the last home game for a lot of them. So go have fun.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It's I like it, CB. All right, here we go. We've got to put this up there. Just Quinn, baby. But thank you for that. All right. Slow clap for the pun. Clap for the pun.
Baby. That's pretty good, CB.
They've got to go out there and have a good time. Just have some fun. Enjoy your moments with your senior. And again, this might be the last time that we see Quinn too. You know, we are approaching the conversation about, you know, Arch Manning coming in after this season. If everything went according to plan after this season, it's Arch's time, right? So Quinn should go out there, enjoy it, soak it all up, and just have fun with this. Again, he matches up well. Texas offense matches up well against this Kentucky defense. So again, go out there, sling the ball, have a good time. All right, let's talk a little bit. All right, on the flip side of this.
On the flip side, if these things happen, Kentucky won the game.
Yeah. So what does Kentucky have to do in this matchup for them to have a chance against beating Texas?
Just like I said with Arkansas last week, similar kind of game. They're going to try and bring you down in the mud, control the clock. So for me, the win. Kentucky wins this game if these three things happen. They won the time of possession, whether that meant just running the ball, mucking it up, or getting Texas off the field with their good defense. If they control the time of possession, Kentucky can win this game. If they pressure Quinn, and we know that leads to sacks, it leads to bad passes at Gunnar Helm's foot, it leads to interceptions. He's been amazing at protecting the ball the last couple of weeks. Amazing. We don't want to revert to where we saw the first drive is an interception. We don't want that. Kentucky's defense is to be very respected. So if they won the game, if they really got to Quinn, like you said, got in his head, forced the sacks. We've seen him take sacks last week at Arkansas in critical third downs, make bad passes in critical third downs. That can't happen. If they can do that consistently throughout the game, they could win this game. And then finally, I think we love Rod Babers always brings this term, break tendencies. If Kentucky comes in here and breaks tendencies and really goes for a fourth down or a third and something tricky that gets this quarterback moving or goes for a fake punt or something they just don't normally do, what's on the line, right? Go for it. Be fearless. Kentucky, be fearless. Go for it. If they can do things that they don't normally do, because how many times has, after not a loss but a struggle, maybe a loss but a struggle, Sark has gone to the mic and said, well, they showed us looks you hadn't seen on film, or they did this and that we hadn't seen on film, and it was different than we prepared for. We know Sark has done a great job, and the staff have done a great job of, like you said, adjusting, especially at halftime, coming back out with a strong second half. If Kentucky can break tendencies and have the Texas staff working those iPads, working those MacBook, whatever they are, have them looking at that film and figure out what did they just do. Those are, to me, 3 keys to a Kentucky win on the road, because they are capable. Regardless, throw the spread out. It's an SEC game. Throw the spread out the door. Yeah, if they can control time possession, pressure Quinn, and break tendencies, they could win this game. What do you have?
Look, I'm going to play on a little bit of what you were saying there with the break tendencies. If Kentucky can establish a run game and really eat up the clock, that's something that I think Texas defense, we know that secondary is some of the best in the nation. You ain't throwing on Texas, but there have been some questions throughout the season about teams that can run on Texas. We saw it early. Texas was giving up a lot of those short and then some of the longer runs right up the gut. So I think, if, to your point, can Kentucky kind of break their tendencies and establish a run? Kentucky's run isn't great. I think they're 71st in the nation for their rush offense. That being said, Texas's defense, their rush defense, is not elite either right now. It's, I think, 64 in the nation. So if Kentucky can go out and really establish a run, not only are they going to eat up the clock and have the potential for those big explosive plays, it's going to frustrate Texas. It's going to keep the defense out there longer than we want to keep them out there. And it's, like I said, it's going to eat up a ton of clock. So I think the first thing, please don't die, take a breath before you drink. So yeah, I think the first thing is, if Kentucky can establish that run and establish it well and early, that's going to be a key for them to beat Texas. Another thing too, we talked about this a little bit earlier. If they can get to Quinn, if Kentucky can pressure Quinn and get in his head and make him think twice about getting hit or about where he throws, that's going to be a key to the game. We mentioned earlier, you got to run that 3 high safety, right? Quinn has not been able.
Yes.
Quinn has not been able to defend against that, but that means you've got to send guys after Quinn as well. You got to get in his head. You got to make him run. You got to make him force that decision and not let him get into his rhythm, not let him get into his groove. Kentucky's really going to have to pressure there and get to Quinn to have a chance at shutting down this Texas offense.
Absolutely.
The third thing that I'm going to say is Texas has got to, like I mentioned earlier, Texas has to protect the ball. If Kentucky is going to have a chance to win, they have to force those turnovers. Forcing turnovers will also help them with that field position as well. So Kentucky's got to give themselves a short field, and they're going to do that. The only way they can do that, I think, is by getting to the ball, knocking that ball out of Texas's hands. Again, we've seen some ball security issues from Texas. If Kentucky can capitalize on that, give themselves short field, I think Kentucky has a chance in this game.
All right. So Texas is the 24th best rush defense. So that will help.
Thank you. I thought they were farther down on that, but yeah.
Not that bad. So there you go. Those are our keys to the game, and we'll make our picks. So let's look at that spread. And I know we log off at 5, but we're going to stay a couple extra minutes and do our top stories, because we have some good ones we want to share. We didn't get to them on Tuesday, so we're going to get to them today. So if we have a lot of people watching, so stay with us. We're going to get to top stories, sports stories, so you can still keep dropping your thoughts on those. There's a few really good ones in there. All right, so Texas is a 20.5 point favorite at home, senior day, midday game. So no crazy night. Drone show,
no drone shows
or anything, but that's fine. Midday game. Tell us, Megan, do you want to go first? Make your score prediction against that spread.
Oh, this one always wears me out. Early in the season, I was confident picking against the spread, but I think that this Texas team has been inconsistent about showing their willingness to run up the score against big spreads like this. So 20.5 point favorite. Oh, Texas, please don't make me regret this. I do think Texas has a game like they had against Florida. I'm going to take Texas to win and cover by 20, let's call it 23 points. Yeah, I'm taking Texas big in this one. I think they show up. I think they're playing on that senior day emotion. So yeah, I'm gonna take Texas. Oh, you're gonna make me do this. I'm gonna say 45 to whatever 23 less than that. I think Texas wins big.
All right. Normally, 'cause I've been the one that's like, Texas never covers. Don't bet on Texas to cover. Even if they take a knee, they don't cover it. Arkansas, they could have covered, but they chose not to. All the things. This one, I feel like senior day, they need the momentum, they need the rhythm, the offensive line. This is probably their last regular season game at Texas, the entire line. I'm saying Texas wins big. This is a terrible offense that cannot keep up with they can't keep up anyway, but they're also going against the number one total defense in the country on the road. This is one where normally I'm not all in. I'm not the big homer. Normally I'm the one that's like, Texas, they haven't done this, they haven't done that. I'm all in this week. I don't know why. I'm all in. I'm in for a big win this weekend. I'm more in that Florida range of score 49-17, but I don't know how Kentucky gets to 17. So I'm going to go 48-9. Maybe they get in field goal range a few times. 48-9
The
is
disrespect. The
the
disrespect.
disrespect. This is a butt kick, and this is the one Texas needs to finish the season strong at
Yeah.
home. The
Yeah.
regular season, I know there's an opportunity to play playoff games at home. I'm going to say 40. I'm going big time, and I never do this. I
You
didn't even
don't.
I picked Texas not to cover last week, and they didn't.
Yeah.
I'm saying 48-9 is my pick for no other reason than their offense is terrible. Our defense is the best, and the offensive line is going to play their best game of the season at home this Saturday. I believe it.
I like it. All right, you've got 48-9. I'm gonna officially put something on it. I'm
I
gonna
mean, why
say,
not? Who cares?
yeah, I'm gonna say 45-17. I do think they find the end zone. So, all right. Well, that I appreciate that. Like, we want to hear y'all's prediction. All right, Lawson, you think the 38-17? All right, I can get with that.
Yes,
Again,
give
man.
us your prediction. If you're on YouTube, you can comment. Give us your prediction.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. All right. Well, we will continue talking Texas. We always love to bring in other stories and some cool things around the sports world. Rocky, I'm just going to jump in with this one real quick.
Okay.
Jordan Johnson Rebel is running his second annual toy drive, and he has
Aw.
extended that. Yeah, has extended that to Austin. So it used to be in his home county in Tarrant County, but now he's bringing it to Travis County as well. So anybody in the area, please be sure to check that out. Again, it's running until December 17th. You can donate via the Amazon gift registry. So he will put that up there. We'll share that on Fire the Cannon on our Twitter feed here in a little bit as well. So yeah, if you can contribute, please do. It's always a fun time of year. And I love to see when the players are giving back and getting involved with the community. I think that's a really great thing. So very cool there.
So you have until December 17th. The link, it's at JJ Rubel on Twitter, and then you can click the link and make your donation to contribute to his toy drive. That's pretty cool. I love when they're using I had this conversation with a friend the other night about the Texas, not just the football, but athletics, and how they are using, a lot of them are using their platform for really good reasons to reach out to, like Hayden Connor to the pets, or to, Colin Simmons with the autism community, or all the different ways that the athletes are finding things that are special to them and using their platform to contribute back to the community. And we were comparing that to some programs that you can't get past the arrests and the this and that and all the things that are distractions. And here's Texas doing their best all the time to a lot of the players are really using their time wisely. All right, Megan, I know you want to share the baseball rankings, because that's
I've got to bring this up. Yeah, listen, I know it's not the time of year, but Texas baseball, the class of 2025 has ranked number 2, has finished at number 2 ranked class for 2025. And right now is trending as if things go the way that they are for the 2026 class, they are the number 1 class for 2026 as well. So huge shout out to the immediate impact that Schloss has made coming onto the 40 acres and really turning that expectation around at Texas. Baseball's going to be a lot of fun this year, y'all. So I know we've got playoffs. I know we got Natties on our mind. I know we've got beating A&M on our mind, but be sure to look at Texas baseball too. It's a lot of fun, and I think it's going to be a really special season. So had to point that out.
All right. Good job. What way to go, Schloss. So you shared this, and I didn't even know this thing was happening. Austin is currently trying to get a WNBA team. I didn't even know this was happening. So let's listen to Corey Mose. Of course, he's on top of everything happening. He shared this video. Let's watch.
Is there a benefit that we started talking to the W a year ago? I'd like to think so. I like to think that I went in and reserved my spot and my ability to negotiate this deal. I don't know. The W hasn't given us a great deal of details in terms of what the criteria is for getting a city, but I do believe that they know that my intention is to make Austin one of the best and biggest WNBA franchises around.
So a lot of love around women's basketball, especially in Austin. Again, I think that's another sport we're seeing kind of have its golden moment and really get a lot of excitement around it. So there is potential with the new Moody Center and with everything that the University of Texas does to potentially have a WNBA there on campus at the Moody Center. So kind of exciting, very cool. Keep an eye out on that.
Yeah,
sure.
so this is Longhorn basketball player Fran Harris, who's working with the WNBA in the community, and she's been in the works trying to get a team to Austin. Wow. I know, like we saw, the Texas women's basketball has had the record number of season tickets sold. They are one of the best teams in the country consistently. And what an opportunity to take that momentum that the university is building and the momentum that WNBA has been building, bringing in huge name players every year out of the women's college game into the WNBA, and to take that and harness it all to an Austin team. I think there's a lot of Austin's really a city where they really value women's sports. We saw the turnout last week at the soccer game, and we've seen the turnouts in basketball and volleyball, right? So it would actually be a pretty cool thing to have that. And I hope if it happens that Austin goes and supports the women of that. That would be pretty fun. Yeah, Austin, I think a WNBA is the right space for Austin, right? Like I think that would fit.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, Rocky, do you have the next sports story? All right.
Yep, I'm ready to go. The UT Board of Regents.
Yeah, bring it on.
All right. So this is pretty cool for a lot of families in not just Texas, but around. The Daily Texan says the Board of Regents has approved free tuition and waived fees for families the families who make less than $100,000 a year. The students are admitted to the university. They get free tuition and waived fees. I think that's amazing because they have a huge endowment, $44 billion sitting there. Use it to be, I quote tweeted this and said, this is generational, right?
Yeah.
This is so many smart kiddos. The price puts them out of being there. They're just as qualified, just as competent, just as able, but that price can put a lot of people out. So to make this available is generational.
Yeah, and to be clear, this is for the UT system as well. So any school within the UT system, I believe there are 16 schools under UT system. Of course, UT Austin being the flagship, but this includes UTSA, UTEP, UT Arlington, UTD. So really cool moment. And the great thing is that taxpayer money does not go to this. This comes from the endowment and from special grants. So yeah, this is very cool. Very cool for the university and encouraging for students that want to come to Texas.
Yep. So if anyone's telling you, they're raising your taxes for these kids to get an art degree, go look it up. They're not. All right. All right. So we talked about this a minute ago. Tom Herman, we talked about it a while ago. Tom Herman and Stan Drayton, we've never seen it before. Both coaches fired after a game.
I still haven't heard it. Anybody watching right now or listening, please chime in if we're incorrect on this, but I cannot recall a game, like we mentioned earlier, I cannot recall a game mid-season that both coaches got fired following that game. That's an insane stat to me. That's an insane, unusual thing to happen. It's unfortunate. Like, I know that Herman has, a lot of people have feelings about Herman. I want to see him succeed. I was hoping that he'd find his footing again. And I've always liked Stan Drayton. So this felt like a double whammy for former Texas coaches.
Both Texas coaches.
Whoa.
Has it ever happened before? And they were both former Texas coaches.
Yeah, it's crazy. So definitely happy with Texas is now. But you found this. How do you feel about this, Rocky?
So because of the success that Deion Sanders has had at Colorado, taking a former NFL player with lots of media and hype and attention and skill as a coach, it's turning out that he's actually a pretty good head coach. Taking that to the college game, the leading candidate to replace Tom Herman at Florida Atlantic is Ray Lewis. And we know Ray Lewis has been, Super Bowl winner and very famous personality, but he's also just like Dion, a kind of a divisive personality in that love him or hate him, right? And some people think Ray Lewis did crazy things, and some people love him for the encouraging, building, motivating person he is now.
The man's
just
been
like
accused
Dion.
of murder.
I mean, I'm not going to accuse him of that because I don't want to get in trouble. But some people have accused him of being around where someone died.
He has been accused. Like,
I know, but I'm not going to accuse him of that because I'm not going to get charged with accusing. Yes, some people have said someone died where he was.
Somebody died in his general vicinity. Yeah, look, I think there's a lot of questions. I think there's a lot of questions about that. I personally don't love the model. Now, Dion's proven us wrong, right? Early on, it was more hype than actual substance. But Colorado's starting to roll. We picked that game a little bit earlier, and it looks like Colorado, he is starting to establish something going on there. My question would be, how long does that last after his kids are gone? Do we see the same kind of dedication? Does Dion stick around after his kids are gone, or does he take a potential opening? I've heard the floated rumor of Dion to the Cowboys. We know that McCarthy's on the hot seat right now. I don't know. What would your thoughts of that? Would you take what Dion has done at Colorado? Does that translate to the NFL?
We don't know yet because there's lightning in the bottle. It's like when hot college coaches go to the NFL. Normally it does not work. Chip Kelly, Saban, right? Yeah. We can go on and on with these coaches that fit the time and place of college football, but didn't translate to the NFL, right? So this is turning out to be a success for Dion overall, and he has the best two players in all of college football on his roster now. He just got a 5-star quarterback commit, which is huge. And my first thought when I saw that is like, well, is Dion going to be your coach when you actually get there? Because there's always these rumors of him going on to be like you said, the Cowboys coach or this or that, right, or leaving when his kids are done. Who knows, right? So I would say, is it lightning in a bottle and Dion was able to make it work? Or is this actually a pathway for experienced, knowledgeable NFL experienced players who have a network of I know this great linebackers coach. I know this great special teams coach. I know one of my buddies was one of the best wide receiving coaches ever, and I played with him back. They have this network, like Dion brought a network of people with NFL and collegiate experience. Ray Lewis probably has that network too. And if you pick the right staff and people that want to come and athletes that want to come play with you, you can make it work. FAU, it's hard to tell anything from something like FAU because Tom Herman was lightning in a bottle at Houston, had moments of greatness at Texas, but not enough. And then now he's already been fired from FAU. So unfortunately, you can't tell much when he gets to Florida Atlantic if he ends up there because that's not going to be where he's going to get top recruits. And it's going to be hard to tell from that.
Yeah, but to that point, coaches are coaches, right? It doesn't matter like what. I agree. Like your recruits are going to be different, but we've talked about this before. In the world of the current NIL, in the world of transfer portal, there's still potential for smaller teams, and there's more parity in college football than there ever has been. There's still potential. So I don't know that I 100% buy into the I agree. Certain coaches fit certain places better than others, no question. But I'm not sure that I'm 100% ready to buy into it's FAU, so you can't really tell what he's capable of doing. I would argue that you have more opportunity to prove yourself at places like FAU, where if you can get those scrappy underdogs to have some success, then you get to see what you're really made of as a coach. I'll bring up Dan Campbell as this as well. Look, nobody gave him credit when he came to the Lions. They won one game that first season. So, and he was saying crazy things like, man, if you knock us down, we'll be down on the ground, but we'll bite your kneecaps off, but we're going to keep fighting. We're going to keep going. He said crazy stuff, right? And at the very beginning, it was about like, what is this guy talking about? He seems insane. But for the ones that were close to the program, what they really understood about that was that this is Dan Campbell being a player's coach. I think that's where you have to kind of talk about, does Ray Lewis make sense? Does Deion Sanders make sense? because they do have that experience. They understand what it's like from the player side. These are guys that are going to fight for their players. They're going to be that player about it coach, again, like Dan Campbell, who played at A&M, who played in Dallas. He's a guy that's a player's coach. And this brings us into our next story. The Lions, for the first time ever,
Your Lions.
my Lions, are Super Bowl favorites for the first time ever.
First time ever.
I was thinking about this.
They weren't even a mention ever.
No, they were the laughing stock. They were the laughing stock for a long time. And just to watch that steady success of Campbell, not unlike Sark. There's a lot of parity between the Lions and Longhorns, y'all. I'm just saying that. You might laugh, but a head coach coming in with some questions. He's all about culture. That's what that team is about. And he stuck with that culture from day one. He had a vision from day one. And you went through a really shitty first season, but you keep building, you keep building, you keep building. And now they have some success. I'll tell you right now, Rocky, if we are in a position where Texas plays for the national championship and the Lions are in the Super Bowl, I don't know what I think my head might explode. I do not know what I will do with myself. I never could have imagined a scenario like that just a few years ago. And here we are. It's kind of cool. It's kind of cool.
Well, just a few years ago, when it was the Miami Super Bowl, my Titans were in the AFC Championship with the lead on Kansas City. So I had flights booked to Miami, cancelable, of course, because I ended up having to cancel them. But I was going to be in Miami. If my team was in the Super Bowl, I was going to be there.
Well, same. And listen, if the Lions make it to the Super Bowl, I will be in New Orleans. I might not have tickets. I probably can't afford those damn tickets, but I will be in New Orleans to
$15,000 ticket.
Right. But I will be in New Orleans to experience the Super Bowl in the atmosphere. And come on, man, it's New Orleans. It's like an 8-hour drive. Why wouldn't I do that?
The party outside the stadium is better than the party inside the stadium.
It's cheaper, at least. That's for sure.
It's not, because I was at that party a couple weeks ago and it's $30 for a drink. All right. So Jonathan Brooks is expected to make his debut. Yes. Welcome back, Jonathan Brooks. We remember last year at TCU, we were there. He had an amazing start to the game, beautiful touchdown runs. And then that terrible knee injury. He was leading the country for the Doak Walker Award, all the great things about Jonathan Brooks' season, but still he had put enough on film to be the first running back taken off the board, enough trust in his development and abilities. He was the first running back taken off the board on crutches. That's amazing. And all the work he's put in to getting back on the field. He is expected. We know he was pulled up from the injury report like in the last week or two, but now the report is from Gridiron, that he will be making his debut against the Chiefs. Chiefs that just took that L to the Bills. He's making his debut this Sunday. So congratulations to lifetime Longhorn Jonathan Brooks.
So I'm going to ask you this. You brought up the Chiefs. I feel like the Chiefs are a very polarizing team right now. Yeah. Are you pro Chiefs or anti Chiefs?
Oh, I'm fine. When they're playing, I cheer for them. That's fine.
I think I'm just tired of them at this point. I think I am now to the point of I would like to see somebody else do well. Again, I'm a Lions fan, so whatever. But I'm gonna put myself. I'm starting to drift to the anti-Chiefs.
Yeah.
Side, I think. So, all right, y'all. Well, we appreciate everybody being here. We had a great time. Thanks for letting us run over on time a little bit, but we had to get those sports stories in and had to talk our talk about Texas. Of course, please drop your thoughts. If you've got them, put them in there. And if you haven't already, please like and subscribe, like the video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That is at Fire the Cannon Podcast on YouTube. You can also find us on Instagram and on Twitter, or X as the young kids call it, at Fire the Cannon and the number 1. We are clearly not the young kids, so it will forever be Twitter to me. That is for sure. Yeah. All right, y'all. Well, as always, we very much appreciate you being here. I'm Megan.
I'm Rocky.
And we are Fire the Cannon. Hook 'em, y'all.